Hey, good morning. Welcome to Rightsizing Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeely. Hope you had a wonderful weekend enjoying sovereignty over journalism. I'll let you think about that one, but that was a great horse race on Saturday, was it not? Churchill Downs, the Kentucky Derby, an exciting time to watch, and really congratulations to all the jockeys, the owners, the horses themselves. Running in all that rain and that mud, just incredible to watch. Sport at its finest. We know that President Trump is a huge fan of sports himself because on this Cinco de Mayo, he will be announcing something big regarding sports, and perhaps it has to do with the NIL. We know back on Thursday at the University of Alabama, he had a long discussion with Senator Tommy Tuberville, now candidate for governor of Alabama, and of course, legendary coach Nick Saban, regarding this entire process in college sports and how the federal government can help out with, a number of different things. So we know President Trump loves sports, and we know he loves America, going into 100 plus days of unbridled success. And again, happy Cinco de Mayo. This is an interesting day because it's mistaken for Mexican Independence Day, which is actually marked on September 16th. So this marks May 5th of 1862, the Battle of Puebla, the Mexican army against the Second Imperial Army of France. So it was an interesting time in the world. We were in the middle of our own civil war, of course, our westward expansion, and then that leading to Texas and Mexican independence. And then, of course, Texas coming into our own country as well years prior when it was once its own constitutional republic. Always interesting and good to reflect upon history as we look back and celebrate why we celebrate the things we celebrate. And I was actually reading about Cinco de Mayo. It's actually more popular in the United States than it is in Mexico. And margarita and taco sales and Mexican Tex-Mex food, in fact, actually on par with that what's purchased during the Super Bowl on a day like today. So whether it was this weekend or today, hope you're celebrating with friends and family. Thank you to our sponsors at Rightsizing Broadcasting Network Live. Colonial Metals Group, a great place to protect your financial freedom and your retirement. So scan that QR code now. Shield those savings today, because Warren Buffett is warning us, along with Paul Stone, the great CEO of this organization, that gold and silver can protect you, not necessarily paper money, and all that inflation out there is a cause for concern. So why is China dumping U.S. bonds, buying up primetime farmland, and rolling out its new digital currency? We know they're playing war games with Taiwan, someone we trade with, especially when it comes to those advanced chips that you put into those tiny computers you carry around, those smartphones. This is a devastating thing to have China acting the way it is. And thank God President Trump is pushing back with the tariff battle. And even though President Trump is a financial genius in his own right, you have to protect your retirement regardless, whether it's properties, assets, 401ks, or IRAs. The 100% inflation-proof option, gold and silver. It survived the fall of currencies, the fall of empires, and regardless of who is in charge, can protect your financial health. So give them a call today, 800-234-0089. That's 800-234-0089, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. For all of those options. Great patriots like Judge Janine Pirro, she loves Colonial Metals Group. It is the best in the business. So I behoove you today to stand and receive $7,500 potentially in free silver by just looking at this no obligation guide. Gold and silver, it's the future. Colonial Metals Group, thank you for sponsoring us here at Rightsizing Broadcasting Network Live, and free or all family pharmacy. This is crucial. Once your finances are in check, your health is the most important. This great company has ivermectin, the methylene blue, great medications that will protect you. In fact, 200 essential medications. Just imagine this for a second. Your pharmacy is closed and you cannot get the medication you need, not because it's not necessarily in stock, it's because someone in Big Pharma does not want you to have it. It's happened in America before. It can happen to you again. They have antibiotics. They have, again, those essential medications, everything to stock your medicine cabinet. Because imagine it's late Sunday night and your wife has high blood pressure, your son is sick with the fever and a flu or a cold, something bad like that, and it continues to spike and there's nowhere to turn. All Family Pharmacy takes care of it. You order online, their doctors are with you 24/7, and they ship it right in the middle of the night to your doorstep. No insurance, no problem. No hassle, just peace of mind. Keep your medicine cabinet ready, stocked, and filled. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and receive 10% off your order with code RSBN10. That's RSBN10. 10% off all of the essential medications, especially ivermectin. Remember they said that wouldn't work? Well, it does. So All Family Pharmacy, thank you for taking care of us here at Rightside Broadcasting Network. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, code RSBN10 for 10% off today. And it's always a joy to be with you as President Trump is making a big sports announcement. So that'll be forthcoming at around 1 o'clock Eastern, if not before or slightly after. We know he has a busy schedule. And wow, has he hit the media circuit, especially the last week. He had us going, and it was great to be back on the campaign trail in Warren, Michigan for the 100 days celebration. Of course, the Macomb Community College, that beautiful sports and expo venue. Every president since Ronald Reagan has been there, whether on the campaign trail or in office, saying hello to the Reagan Democrats in Macomb County, somewhere so crucial in the Wolverine State and for the entire nation. And then, of course, that brilliant commencement speech at the University of Alabama. And President Trump said it's not the Harvard Crimson who will be help running the country. It's the Alabama Crimson Tide. And then he paused for a moment. He got that gleaming look in his eye and just said, "That came from my head." So it was a great time. Both speeches roughly would have taken up around an hour as written. They went around 90 minutes with all of the improv. And as he mentioned both times, isn't it great to have a president who does not need a teleprompter? Nor do we have one here at Rightside Broadcasting Network, because we analyze, we report, we give it to you with the unbridled coverage of inside and outside of the Beltway. So ultimately you, the viewer, can make that decision for yourself. We want you to have access to all the speeches. We want you to have access to the hearings. This is your government that you put into place on November 5th of last year, rebuking the big state globalist mantra, the nightmare that was 4 years of the auto pen and borders are Kamala Harris. Wow, did we dodge a bullet there? Because she would have been terrible for this American economy as it continues to grow and the American dollar gets stronger and stronger and stronger. In case you missed it, Caroline Levitt batting 1,000 as the White House press secretary with her MAGA Minute, going through another busy week at the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House as we know it, that beautiful museum, residence, and workplace, but also on the road as she was with Susie Wiles on Air Force One, joining President Trump in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Some of the highlights for me to watch: the students stood the entire time at the beginning of their commencement ceremony. It was not only a very pro-Trump crowd, but people who really wanted to focus on what can they do in the future for this great country. It reminded me of looking back to JFK's first inaugural. Ask not what your country could do for you, but what you could do for your country. And President Trump had many of those themes in there about service, about teaching lessons, going step by step about what's natural in the business world, what's natural in getting out there, being unafraid, not quitting, using your youth. And he said, oh, how I'd give a few bucks to be young again. And keeping that momentum, even stuff reminded me of so many things in my own career, to keep moving forward, to persevering. And he shared knowledge that no one else would really get in a commencement speech. Sometimes people talk about theories and ideas. President Trump actually talked about tangible things that can be used, that these graduates will go on to do in their futures, whether it's in the sciences, whether it's in business, whether it's in politics and public service. And he hearkened back to no life is complete without that public service. And we love how Coach Nick Saban said as well, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. So two great lessons from extraordinary leaders where legends are made. And we have that video from the commencement speech in case you missed it.
What a beautiful group of people. There's nowhere I'd rather be than right here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Titletown, USA. If you're here today and think that you're too young to do something great, let me tell you that you're not too young. You can have great success at a very young age. I've learned that perseverance is everything, so whatever happens, no matter where you are in life, stay optimistic and just keep pushing forward. Just don't stop. Never, ever give up. This is Alabama, and in Alabama, you fight, 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 and you win, win, win. That's what you know how to do. Congratulations to you all. Congratulations to this great class of champions. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all very much.
An exciting evening. Thank you again to the University of Alabama, their president, their SGA leader. Everyone there was so hospitable, and it was a joy to be on the campus to welcome these Auburn Tigers, RSBN, to their campus. For one day, we were not necessarily rivals, but joined in together our love for country and our love for this beautiful state of Alabama. Some breaking news from President Trump on Truth Social. He just got off of the phone, a very productive telephone conversation with Mr. Erdogan of Turkey, the leader there, concerning many subjects, including the war with Russia, Ukraine, all things Syria, Gaza, and more. The president invited me, this is President Trump, President Erdogan has invited him to Turkey at a future date. And likewise, he will be coming to Washington, D.C. During my 4 years as president, my relationship with President Erdogan has been excellent. We worked together closely on numerous things, including the fact that he helped return Pastor Andrew Brunson, who was imprisoned, back to the United States immediately upon my request. I look forward to working with President Erdogan on getting this ridiculous but deadly war over with between Russia and Ukraine ended now, in all caps. Thank you for President Trump for the update there. So good to know what's going on in world events. This is what he does best: peace through strength, communicating with everyone, friend and foe, so that the United States is respected and also feared on a global scale. Also, that's something I just wanted to, I guess, clear up, because you might have seen through the media that some people were in a tizzy because President Trump has this AI image he truthed out of him as the next pope. There's comedy behind what he's doing. I get it. People are, up in arms about it. There's a lot worse things, because President Trump uses humor to get a message across. He's done that on many occasions now. I mean, he even said that during the press gaggle. I think I'd be the next great pope. Of course, it was in jest, and talked about how much he respected Timothy Cardinal Dolan. So there's worse things out there, like people praying outside of Planned Parenthoods and being imprisoned and not receiving their Sixth Amendment due process rights, which we saw during the Otto Penn administration with the Catholic in name only presidency of Joseph R. Biden Jr., who truly was a communist surrounded by socialist, Marxist, communist perverts. We don't need any more of that. We need a freedom-loving, liberty-loving president who put a task force together, including Bishop Robert Barron, Pastor Franklin Graham, Pastor Paula White, Jewish leaders, on top of many different faith leaders throughout the United States, to address religious liberty. And that executive order signed on Thursday before coming to Tuscaloosa. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. He has a comedic way about him. It's his way of getting across serious issues. And quite frankly, there's a lot more to cry and complain about. Just my take. We welcome yours. Feedback at rsbn.tv. That's feedback at rsbn.tv if you wish to opine, because that's what it's all about here. It's celebrating freedom of speech. It's celebrating freedom of the press and the freedom to gather and either protest or celebrate what's great with this nation. In fact, there will be many celebrations forthcoming. President Trump excited to put together the June 14th Flag Day celebration forthcoming in Washington, D.C. We got reports during interviews over the weekend that he will be putting on a big parade, very similar to a Bastille Day in France. And during his first term, he expressed how much he appreciated Emmanuel Macron's leadership in France when it came to that Army and Navy and military parade that you would see in Paris. He actually joined him for one occasion regarding Bastille Day, and we'll see something similar for Flag Day. It'll be a great celebration of America, as we thank our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. AngelPaste.com. Experience the miracle today. This cream is filled with vitamin Bs, non-GMO, no chemicals, and it's good for you. So why not go with it? Because this great company, Christian-owned, they hire veterans, and they're based in the Lone Star State, Spring, Texas, right off of the Gulf of America. Experience the miracle today. AngelPaste.com. They have an immunity option. It's their orange brand, which is filled with vitamin C. Again, non-GMO, no chemicals. We also have the natural mosquito repellent, as those pesky bugs are starting to come out this time of year as the weather gets warmer and warmer. And also a great facial spray for the guys and the gals. So if you want to paint the town red, you know that the best option for you is AngelPaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us out of Spring, Texas. A great town, a great company. You don't need all those chemicals and those nasty corporate brands. You need the miracle today. AngelPaste.com, all natural, healthy, and good for you. Your skin will be shining smooth as mine was when I tried it right here on the network. AngelPaste.com, thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And if you're just joining us, we are roughly 16 minutes past the hour. Good morning, America. I'm Robert McNeely, and we are live in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, reporting about Washington, D.C. and that beautiful White House where President Trump will be making a big sports announcement forthcoming. Again, he met with Coach Nick Saban and the former coach, Senator Tommy Tuberville, also candidate for governor of Alabama. And he was on Air Force One with President Trump traveling to Tuscaloosa last week. And I'm sure they spoke extensively on the NIL issue. We know both Senator Tuberville and Coach Saban, big critics of what has taken place there, because that's one of the reasons Saban left coaching football. He said, I felt like I wasn't turning men or boys into men necessarily, but it became more of the minor leagues. More players were starting to be concerned with salary rather than growing as students and growing as good men in the community. And that's why he went to commentating. So we'll see what happens with everything regarding the NIL process, something that there are some positives, there are some negatives. We'll dive into those as President Trump is set to make an announcement about this, where the federal government can assist with that process and perhaps certain regulations or even the removal of regulations. We'll see what happens there, because President Trump is engaged in the culture. He loves sports and he loves the sense of competition. And he is the most transparent president with the press gaggles. Again, last night on Air Force One, coming back from Florida, he is talking to the press. He is engaging them on a number of different topics, things they want to know, things that have to be looked into in order to figure out what's best for this country and what's not so best, and especially when it comes to your taxpayer money. In case you missed it, last week, President Trump has an executive order getting rid of the federal funding for PBS and for NPR. And that is a good thing, because they were putting out some extreme content, things that your children could see at home that weren't necessarily appropriate. I'll pull up a list of this because it really was quite disgusting. Again, everyone has free speech, but these are places that have major, major endowments. And then, like Harvard, they cry and whine and complain when that federal money is cut off, because they're either putting out really grotesque content that actually can violate FCC standards, or they go down an entire road completely bashing one side of the political aisle, 80 million plus people, or even those who are not political but conservative socially and believe in traditional marriage, believe in raising their kids on the right side of history, and then they're exposed to these things that are really quite gross and disgusting, and things that have to do with the transgender issues or just perverted content that gets out there. And we'll see where that is here as I am looking through my list. In the meantime, President Trump is very focused on rebuilding this economy. And that's kind of against the narrative of the mainstream, what's been happening recently. And I chuckle about it because more Americans are working for higher pay ever since he came into office on January 20th. This is the second month in a row where the jobs report has beat expectations. Wages are continuing to rise, and labor force participation is increasing in the United States of America, according to Press Secretary Caroline Levitt. More Americans are working now for higher wages. More winning is on the way. President Trump is revitalizing the American economy as the workforce grows and businesses onshore jobs, and today's job reports proves it. In April, the United States added 177,000 jobs, smashing expectations for another month as the labor market responds to President Trump's economic vision. Private education and health services, these are up 70,000 in the job numbers. That's the raw data right there. Transportation and warehousing up 29,000. Leisure and hospitality up 24,000. Professional and business services 17,000. And financial activities 14,000. So again, that's what you have to take through these two lenses. Either someone is lying, i.e. the corporate media so-called experts, or that's actually not happening. Perhaps maybe talk to your neighbors about what they think about the labor force at the moment. But the participation grew more Americans as they enter the workforce during this golden age of America. And that's what we saw last Tuesday. The American dream is back. The golden era is here for the United States. Americans' wages continue to rise, with real average hourly wages up by nearly 4% over the last year. And that's what we saw in the first term, especially after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which came in December of 2017. When that was released, the proof was in the pudding. President Trump, under his leadership, regardless of socioeconomic background, what your zip code was in the United States, everyone was keeping more of their take-home pay. That corporate tax rate went from 35% down to 21%. President Trump wants to get that down now to 15%. In fact, cutting taxes on tips, cutting taxes on overtime, and that will be the next rung on this economic agenda, according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Construction employment increased for the third straight month, adding 11,000 new jobs with no evidence of labor shortages in sight. The federal government cut jobs for the third straight month as President Trump implements his bold vision to right-size the bureaucracy. And this is the thing that has really been good about this streamlining the size and scope of government. First of all, as President Reagan said, the closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government program. Once it's there, it does not leave. Remember, things like Social Security were supposed to be temporary, part of the great society. And it's presidents like FDR, who was great in his own right, but on those labor policies, very, very left of center. And then you had people like LBJ and Autopen Joe, who wanted to be this second coming of LBJ and then put way too much government into the mold and programs that will last a lifetime, if not for generations. But President Trump stopped Autopen right in his tracks and said, no, go grab an ice cream cone, because the economic geniuses are back in the White House. And the great part about this is many of these federal employees, you hear about this doom and gloom, many have been given options that say, here's the door, here's 8 months of severance package, maybe a little bit less, but it's pretty good as you're looking to get a new job. And all they want to do is, for example, send that email back and tell me 5 things you're either proud of or what you're accomplished this week. What's on the agenda? I can tell you every week we're able to do that here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. I would say most people are able to look at the abilities and the hats they wear at their respective roles in their careers and say, here are 5 goals, here are 5 tangible items that I have done or I'm seeking to accomplish or have accomplished in the last week, the last 2 weeks, the last month, the last quarter. But then you have people who just don't want to come back to work or stay at home since the pandemic. Really, really sad, because then it's our taxpayer money funding all of that. $36 trillion of debt that President Trump is trying to scale back. In the meantime, change the global supply line and supply chain to make it all more efficient for the United States. Because our medicine, our big pharma, is all over being produced in China. That's going to change. That needs to happen, because we can't export our meat and our poultry to Europe. They won't accept that because of the poisons and the pesticides in our ranchers and farmers' fields. And that's why Brooke Rollins and Bobby Kennedy working so hard to fix all of those things. President Trump, truly the antithesis of his living predecessors who did so much damage to this country over the course of the last 25 years. It's great to have a disruptor-in-chief. A disruptor-in-chief, that's a good thing. Not only the commander-in-chief, but someone who came in to turn the tables, to, as a biblical reference, throw up the tables and the money changers within the temple. It's President Trump coming in, ushering in religion, ushering in free speech, ushering in constitutional government once again in the United States. Thank you to our sponsors at Rightside Broadcasting Network Live, Tax Network USA, tnusa.com. Protect yourself from the IRS. Settle those back taxes today. Don't delay. Call today, 800-357-1415. 800-357-1415, especially if you missed that April 15th deadline or had to extend, or even you're looking back at past back taxes. These are the Patriot experts, whether it's property taxes, state income taxes, the federal income taxes, that can protect you from financial bankruptcy and trouble, because you have the Auto Pen administration bring in 88,000 new IRS agents. Just an overreach of federal governance. So protect yourself today. Settle those back taxes now. tnusa.com/RSBN, 800-357-1415. Get your unbridled access to the Patriot experts today at taxnetworkusa.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us here, tnusa.com/RSBN. We appreciate you, Tax Network, and all you do for our great network here, live for you, the American people. Here is what they are saying. Economist Steve Moore. This is an amazing report on the jobs. The labor force rose in participation, so this is a truly strong number. We have the ER Shares CEO, Joel Schuman. This is very encouraging because we're already seeing many of the companies dependent upon foreign suppliers already reshoring some of their jobs. And even former Toys R Us CEO Gerald Storch, we're going to be in great shape. And that's what you would hope for in this great nation, to be in great shape, to be ready to take on the Chinese Communist Party and the people that want to give us a hard time around the world. There is a rise in right-wing populism and nationalism. That's not a bad thing. Look at our partners in El Salvador. Mr. Bukele doing an extraordinary job taking criminal aliens at the behest of our deportation, based on the work of Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, all doing extraordinary jobs in their leadership roles to secure this nation, and other great nations helping us out in exchange for free trade and fair trade deals. Look at Italy and how fantastic it is under Giorgia Meloni and the work that she's doing. As she told President Trump and Vice President Vance, this is about saving Western civilization, working together as a team, respecting each other's sovereignty, but also being friends in the process. Because we want that for one another. We want free trade, but also fair trade. It goes back to what our founders envisioned for this great nation: to be strong, to be free, to be fair, to also not get entangled in global alliances that would pull us down. And as President Trump has said with the European Union, that was made to, pardon my French, screw the United States at the end of the day. And it's true. And in turn, it's harmed great nations and the cultural identities of places like Ireland. Think about the dependence on Russian oil that Germany needs, as Germany was trying to export its influence over all of Europe. Brussels, Belgium, being really the headquarters of the EU, the so-called headquarters. But thanks to things like Brexit in the UK, and for leaders like Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Italy, among the influence of great leaders like the president of Turkey, Mr. Erdogan. It's all now pushing back through dialogue, through calling, through peace and strength. And that's truly the courage of a leader, calling for peace. That's always harder. It's easy to point a missile towards someone and threaten them and try to, raise the proverbial middle finger in insult. But that's child's play. What's true work, what's true success is actually talking to friend and foe. It's stepping over the demilitarized zone and talking to little rocket man and engaging in a dialogue that might be tough at first, but then brings you to the table. And then when you actually talk to someone, you might realize you might have more in common with them than you thought because of the narrative that's been out there, from a small scale to a large scale. I can even remember the first time I ran for office. I had two opponents, and we actually, here's the dirty little secret, really respected one another on a personal level. But the people around us in Chicagoland, they wanted us to battle. They had vested interests. They wanted a pound of flesh if you're a Shakespeare fan. That wasn't something that was necessary. What was necessary was talking about roughly 7 issues that were of importance to the community and dialoguing about public policy. It wasn't about calling someone this name or that name. It was respecting where they came from and then talking about that and dialoguing. And we're seeing that kind of revival right here in the United States with the business acumen and, quite frankly, the big brain and the genius of President Donald Trump's approach. The people in his cabinet did not need these positions. They don't need to advance. They're actually very successful in their own right. And with their families, I pray for them all the time, because who needs this? Who needs to be hidden from the public or even having bolstered or extra security because they're taking a tough stand, not only fighting for their family members, but the future of this nation. And President Trump also stating over the weekend that, again, hyperbole about running for a third term, he's ready to pass the reins to likely a very good Republican, and said that could be J.D. Vance, that could be Marco Rubio. And I'm going to predict that it's very likely the next president of the United States, and we're soaking in this until January 2029, because that will be a very sad day. I know I will cry a tear of gratitude, or perhaps many more than that, for President Trump and everything he's given to this nation, his family has sacrificed in order to make America great again. But he knows that it's the legacy that he will be passing on. And I think that person's going to come from this cabinet. I think it will be someone like Vice President Vance or Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The two of them have been extraordinary on the world stage. Perhaps that is the next Republican ticket. And really, in turn, it's the next national liberty ticket. Maybe we could start calling it that rather than Republican and Democrat, but the national unity ticket, as it once was in 1864, in the midst of a great strife and, at the time, seemingly global conflict right here in the United States, a horrible civil war that would determine what direction we were going. The one conflict that has cost more American lives than any other in our nearly 250-year history. So it's important to look to the future, and I believe that that future comes directly from this cabinet and that they are being prepared in real time. Look at Secretary Rubio, 14 different international trips in roughly 14 weeks. Vice President Vance in France. Also, oh, that's a nice rhyme, Italy, India, the Vatican, the last unofficial meeting with Pope Francis. He has been beyond presidential and someone who is serving that VP role so well, so much better than those in the recent past, especially his predecessor, who would cackle her way down the runway or just hold her hands up and talk like this because she did not know what she was talking about. The wheels on the bus go round and round, Kamala Harris. Yes, they do, and they go round and round in the direction of liberty, against tyranny, against communism. Please, please, please leave my friends in California alone and just retire. Go away, because those policies are globalist policies of the past, of harming the middle class. It's over now. Our manufacturing's coming back, steel production in this country. And look at all of the different allies now, like Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She loves Trump. She is on the Trump train with everything that President Trump is doing, not only for water production, clean air in the great state of Michigan, but also the production with our Navy and our Air Force and steel manufacturing up against our northern border, something very important. And Gretchen Whitmer was there for it last week with the Michigan National Guard, as President Trump presented to them right before that rally in beautiful Warren, Michigan. Thank you to our sponsors at Rightside Broadcasting Network. That gentleman I got some time to spend with last week. Always a pleasure to be with Mike Lindell. The Percale bed sheets, the closeout sale, all colors, all sizes, $25. Promo code RSBN. That's mypillow.com/RSBN. 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell and RSBN. Shop now at mypillow.com/RSBN. Save with code RSBN, simple to remember, as easy as that, easy as 1, 2, 3, do, re, mi. Mike Lindell, the purveyor of election integrity and freedom of speech, a good friend of the network, and a good friend of liberty, and perhaps, we'll see what happens, but maybe the next governor of Minnesota. It's an exciting time, 2026 around the corner, and some great names forthcoming to run for respective offices. But nevertheless, thank you to Mike Lindell and mypillow.com/RSBN for sponsoring us here at Rightside Broadcasting Network Live. And so many highlights from last week, just the excitement with President Trump celebrating 100 days, doing a media blitz, and that's the difference with this presidency. He will invite places like ABC into the Oval Office. He will talk to NBC down at Mar-a-Lago with really, quite frankly, terrible so-called journalists. They are talking heads. They are people that really aren't very good at what they do and also have an opinion in the process. We'll never hide from you that we're on the right side of history, that we are hosting. We bring journalistic integrity, of course, to this, but we're analyzing, we're sharing opinion, we're dialoguing, we're bringing you groundbreaking interviews here at Rightside Broadcasting Network as your go-to live desk. But we're also going into the field. We're bringing hours of coverage and then not censoring any of the speeches. Even there last week, it was mostly local news, but we had some other friends and colleagues on the dais with us at that podium at the Coleman Coliseum at the University of Alabama at Tuscaloosa. But we were running the whole thing for you. You did not miss a minute, because that's what we want to do here. We want to bring you this unbridled access to the Commander-in-Chief, to President Trump, and all that he does to make America great again. And again, back to the future. That's why he was at Tuscaloosa. He's obsessed with, and I've seen it on many occasions, so many different speeches over the years. He is focused on the next generation of leadership and those who will be at the mantle, the reins to take on this great economic engine that is the United States. He wants to leave it set up for the best success possible. And the one way to do that is by securing the borders. The next way to do that is to use tariffs to bring wealth back to this nation. And now the third part of this entire mission, as the Treasury Secretary mentioned, Mr. Scott Bessent, putting in the new tax plans that take tax cuts on tips, that are no tax on overtime. This is why Nevada went for President Trump. That's a service-based industry, tourism and recreation, such a huge draw to the entertainment capital of the world, arguably. But that's why that they went with President Trump back in November in all 7 swing states, because they needed economic revitalization, whether it comes to tourism, entertainment, just the manufacturing taking place in those respective states, especially in Michigan, as we saw that with the Wolverine state last week, how crucial this is in order to save this great nation. And then you start saving money from within the corporation, otherwise known as the federal government. The waste, fraud, and abuse found by Doge is going into the billions, if not trillions of dollars. And President Trump, during that fifth cabinet meeting last week, had Elon Musk on hand, and he said, you could stay as long as you want, buddy. And they had the Gulf of America hats hot off the press, the red ones, like a traditional red MAGA hat, or even the navy blue with the red lettering. And Elon had two on at once. And President Trump said, I think you're the only one who could get away with that, buddy. But the entire cabinet, impressive people in their own right, all clapping for Elon and the team he assembled of CEOs, CFOs, tech experts, in order to save the country and really take so much nonsense for it. Think about this. Would you ever go over to your neighbor's house and light a piece of property of theirs on fire because you disagreed with them? Maybe some of you would. I would hope not, because you will be prosecuted, as Attorney General Pam Bondi helping to slap on potentially 20-year convictions if these people are found guilty of what they did. It would be horrible to go to jail for that. If you kicked a Tesla, why would you do that? It's private property. We can agree to disagree here in this country. And Elon's sacrificing so much, and this is what he talks about. This is about Western civilization. No one should be harassed because of their political beliefs and backgrounds. And the winning keeps happening, regardless if you like it or not. And Caroline Levitt lays it out so beautifully. And this is from a video, in case you missed it, from her press briefing just last week at the White House.
One of the main reasons President Trump won nearly 80 million votes, swept all 7 battleground states, and received a resounding mandate from the American public is because of the contrast he presented during the campaign and continues to this day. Everything in President Trump's agenda is grounded in one thing: common sense. While the Democrat Party went off the deep end and doubled down on pure craziness, President Trump pledged to restore common sense back to the United States of America. In a little more than 3 months, that's exactly what he's done. He recognized that America is a sovereign nation that cannot survive if it does not protect its territorial borders. So he secured the border in record time and ended the mass invasion of tens of millions of illegal aliens into our homeland. The president knows his top responsibility is ensuring the safety of the American people, which is why he's arresting violent illegal alien invaders in our communities who threaten our public safety. And it's unacceptable to President Trump to allow rampant waste, fraud, and abuse of Americans' precious tax dollars, which is why the president championed a historic Doge effort that saved nearly $200 billion already. President Trump knows America is blessed with an abundance of liquid gold below our feet in the form of fossil fuels. So he ended Joe Biden's reckless war on American energy and is restoring American energy dominance to lower costs and strengthen our national security. President Trump believes Americans should be free to drive whatever car they want, so he ended Joe Biden's disastrous EV mandate and promoted true consumer choice. President Trump stood up for the Constitution's promise of colorblind equality before the law, so he terminated radical DEI preferencing and federal contracting and directed federal agencies to relentlessly combat private sector discrimination. DEI seeks to divide and pit Americans against each other based on immutable characteristics. President Trump put an end to it. In President Trump's America, individual dignity, hard work, and excellence are the only things that will determine if you get ahead. President Trump is a proud free speech champion, which is why he ended Joe Biden's trampling of free speech rights and the federal government's censorship of American speech on online platforms. The president believes college students have a right to speak their minds and go to school safely. Again, common sense. So he took bold action to protect Jewish American students from harassment by pro-Hamas radicals on their campuses. And President Trump knows that America's children are our future, and he'll never stop fighting for them. That's why he ended the radical, un-American indoctrination of children by eliminating support for divisive, radical gender ideology and equity ideology, and why the president protected parents' fundamental rights. And lastly, the president believes in fundamental biology. Isn't that something? Which is why he made it the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 sexes, male and female. And because men and women are biologically different, President Trump ended the unfair, demeaning practice of forcing women to compete against men in sports and having their private spaces invaded. When President Trump promised a complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense, he meant it. And over the next 100 days, get ready for historic trade deals, budget deals, and peace.
And the winning continues. As we're getting some raindrops, I think, at the White House, President Trump to make a big sports announcement roughly at 1 o'clock Eastern. So stay tuned with us as we go through all of the success, 100 plus days in the White House now. Thank you to our sponsors, Colonial Metals Group. The great Paul Stone, the CEO of this organization, would like you to scan that QR code now to shield your savings and heed Warren Buffett's last warning regarding everything happening with stocks, properties, assets, your 401k and your IRA. Why are the Chinese dumping U.S. stocks? Why are they buying primetime farmland right here in the United States? Why are they sending spy balloons over the mainland? Thank God AutoPen is gone and the real commander-in-chief is back in office. freegoldguide.com/RSBN has all the information you need to know to protect your savings, your assets for retirement, or even big purchases like sending your student to the beautiful, the lovely Auburn University right behind me there. So think about that. Your financial future for you and your family, so important regardless of who's in power or what government you live under. Gold and silver standing the test of time, truly saving this beautiful country of ours up 7,000%. Gold is up 7,000% since 1971 when the gold standard went bye-bye under Richard Nixon and his administration. So you have that situation going on. So protect your family against the real scary thing known as inflation. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Contact them today. Scan the QR code now. Shield your savings and go with the best in the business. Paul Stone and Colonial Metals Group. Thank you for sponsoring us at Rightside Broadcasting Network Live. We now have border czar Tom Homan live for you. We'll take that there now to see his comments.
Allowed into this country under the Biden administration that simply don't qualify for asylum. Most of them will lose that asylum claim. So while they're clogging up the whole system, in addition to those who want to come in legally, while the millions of fraudulent asylum claims under Biden administration, there are people in this world who really are escaping fear and persecution from their homeland. But they're sitting in the back seat too because millions of people cheated the system coming across the border and released in the United States that caused a significant backlog in immigration court. And that wasn't by accident, it's by design. Let's just overwhelm the system so it takes 5, 7, 9 years to go through the whole process if they take advantage of the appeals process. They know exactly what they're doing. That's why they weren't in ICE detention. Because in ICE detention, they get a hearing within 35 days. But if we release millions of the country, overwhelm the system so they don't get a hearing in 5, 7, 9 years, then maybe there's a Democrat administration in power. Now we can have an amnesty. They know exactly what they're doing. They're playing the long game. But we're going to beat them at it. We're going to ramp up interior enforcement operations and removals. We're going to force the law. We're not going to ignore the law like the prior administration did.
The president says he doesn't know what his responsibilities are under Article 5 of the Constitution. Who would it be who would educate him about that? Would it be you?
I think the president is one of the, if not the most knowledgeable president that we've ever had. Look, people can beat on President Trump all you want. President Trump's a game changer. I've worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. I'm a border guy. Even President Clinton and Obama took steps to secure the border because they understood you can't have national security if you don't have border security. No one did more than President Trump during his first administration. We handed the Biden administration the most secure border in my lifetime, and he purposely unsecured it. First president in history of the nation to do that. Look at what President Trump achieved in 8 weeks. He did in 8 weeks what Joe Biden couldn't and wouldn't do in 4 years. We have the most secure border in the history of this nation right now because of President Trump. Greatest president in my lifetime. You can quote me on that.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Thank you. Thank you.
And border czar Tom Homan setting the record straight right outside of the West Wing. Always beautiful to see that because this administration is together and working harder than ever and frank with one another too. Opinions are welcome, especially President Trump seeking the expertise of someone like Homan. Again, working under 6 presidents, both Republican and Democrat. As Tom Homan has said, no one's been better on the border than President Trump. And it's stopping evils like fentanyl. It's stopping human trafficking. It's stopping the rapes and the murders. And Tom has seen some of the worst things out there, some of the worst in human nature. And again, his optimism mixed with that toughness, something needed again, true masculinity. The left might call it toxic masculinity, but that's okay. They can have their lattes, their soy lattes specifically, because they have to put poisons and chemicals into their drinks in order to even operate during the day, because I think they're just made out of test tubes, but I digress. We have real people at the White House making a difference for you on a daily basis, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Party doesn't matter. We the people versus this globalist bureaucracy. We have a series of videos for you on all the successes happening with President Trump, this administration, and the fact how they're reshaping the economy at the ground level, not only when it comes to global supply chain, also strengthening the dollar and working to make sure those investments that you put in with your hard-earned time, treasure, and talent, that you can keep that money and choose where to put that instead of it going to this bloated government bureaucracy. So important to do as we look towards the future of this great nation, as this economy is once again growing under the economic prowess and genius of President Donald Trump and this administration. We could toss that there now if that video is ready.
We have more monies being spent than at any time in the history of our country. We're up to close to $8 trillion, I think I can say.
At the heart of the Trump administration's policies is one overarching goal. It is to stage the great American manufacturing comeback.
President Trump pushing ahead with his America First agenda.
Breaking news, Apple announced it's going to work with Foxconn to build a server factory in Texas by 2026.
The company says it is now planning to invest $500 billion in the U.S. economy.
The CEO of SoftBank pledging to invest $100 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
This is President Trump delivering on the promise he made to the American people on the campaign trail.
The idea is come to America, build greatness in America, build for American customers.
Project Stargate. It's a joint venture between SoftBank, Oracle, and OpenAI, and they're going to create a data center that will eventually be expanded to other states.
Shows people are listening to Mr. Trump's pitch to bring new industry to America.
This is the latest pledge from a foreign business leader promising to spend big in the U.S. as a result of Trump's election victory.
Founder of the property development company DeMac Properties is pledging the money.
President Trump announcing $100 billion investment from Taiwan Semiconductor, bringing the company's total American investments to $165 billion.
The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America.
Things happen so quickly in the Trump world, right? It's 100 days. Right. It feels like it's 100 months. This is leadership. This is taking control of the problem for military, for everything, for industrial, for our economy. Even if it causes short-term pain, the reality is it is the right decision.
All of the computer chip companies are coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen before.
NVIDIA says it will invest hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 4 years, part of the manufacturing renaissance under President Donald J. Trump.
Furniture maker Prepack are shifting their operations from Canada to North Carolina.
Johnson & Johnson says it will invest more than $55 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
And the auto companies are coming in. I could name 8 right now already, auto plants that are either starting or about ready to start construction.
Hyundai announced a $20 billion investment.
With your leadership, Mr. President, Hyundai Motor Group is proud to be a stronger partner in America's industrial future.
This is the automobile industry, and now those plants largely have stopped and they're moving them to our country. Honda is building one of the biggest plants.
Honda is producing its next generation Civic Hybrid in Indiana instead of Mexico.
Trump believes that the key to transforming America along the lines he wants, economically, socially, and politically, is to revive the factories and foundries across this country.
We're going to train people in trade craft, bring back trade craft to America so that people can work in these factories with great paying jobs. We're going to train them, and we're going to remake the American dream.
The trade story is certainly picking up speed here and pushing more countries to make these bigger investments.
It's another example of the Trump effect.
GE Aerospace announcing a nearly $1 billion investment into American manufacturing.
Eli Lilly announcing plans to expand its manufacturing here in the United States.
$27 billion additional spend, bringing our total to more than $50 billion.
The money's rolling in, and this is in the past 60 some odd days, Charles.
And these are deep-pocketed folks who want to have a relationship, and it's just smart moves.
We are CMA CGM, one of the leaders in shipping and logistics around the world. Today, we are investing $20 billion.
Foreign leaders from around the world, investors from Silicon Valley to Wall Street to Main Street have confidence again in our economy, in our markets, and in President Trump.
The Trump effect this morning, a string of massive wins for American manufacturing. The numbers speak for themselves. Wisconsin-based Clarios is putting up $6 billion to expand its American operation. And what's driving these decisions? Well, President Trump's aggressive Made in America policies and his commitment to bringing industry back to American soil. This is exactly what Trump promised. America first is back.
It's just winning, winning, winning. So much winning, I can't take the winning anymore. It's a good thing to be in President Trump's presence, his leadership for this nation. If there's anyone who knows the economy, it's President Donald Trump, and he continues to share that on X as well with all of his further accomplishments.
In the face of unrelenting economic warfare, the United States can no longer continue with a policy of unilateral economic surrender.
Donald Trump is about to do something in economics that's never been done in American history.
His goal is to actually punish anyone outside the country that's producing goods that America should be producing for itself. He's going to raise revenue for the government. He's going to protect American jobs. And you're going to see a lot of people say, look, America's open for business. Why would you not want to come here and build?
His game is, I'm making America first. I know how to do it. I've got the backbone to do it. No one else did it, and I'm going to get it done.
Trust in President Trump. He knows what he's doing. This is a proven economic formula.
We are finally putting America first.
These mortgage rates come down, inflation has come down, egg prices have come down. These are things you cannot ignore. You've seen trillions of dollars in investment. You've seen companies saying that they're going to expand operations here and nearly 250,000 new jobs.
Oil prices went down almost 15% in 2 days. Interest rates hit their low for the year.
We're celebrating the White House, a decline in the price level, a reduction in inflation.
Some incredible new numbers. This month, consumer prices, they actually dropped. This never once happened under Joe Biden.
Bringing inflation to 2.4% from the same time last year.
The Dow right now shooting up over 2,000 points. Look at that.
Energy costs now are down, groceries are down, gasoline is way under $3, and people are beginning to be able to buy things and live again.
This is the most aggressive effort at pro-American growth in American history.
This is on top of 100 plus days in the White House, great economic success, mugshots on the White House lawn of all of the Tren de Aragua, MS-13, the border cartels, getting them out of the country, IBM, Walmart, Merck, Mercedes-Benz, Pratt Investments, all really sharing how much they're pouring into this country, as you saw from both videos. The executive order on roads and cars to build more infrastructure here in this country, ending sanctuary cities, NPR and PBS cuts because it works for you, the American people. The Take It Down Act, our wonderful First Lady, how extraordinary she's been protecting citizens across this great nation, especially those minors. And the only way we get this information out there to you, the American people, to share with you what your government's doing is by our great sponsors here at Rightside Broadcasting Network. So imagine having a medication, needing it, and then you can't get it because it's not out of stock, but because Big Pharma, those people don't want you to have it. That's where All Family Pharmacy comes in to protect you. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. That's code RSBN10. 10% off for ivermectin and other essential medications. Over 200, in fact. They make it simple, and you don't have to go through loops and hoops when your pharmacy gives you a hard time. Whether it's ivermectin, the methylene blue, again, 200 essential medications and antibiotics for your everyday use that can keep your medicine cabinet stocked and your family ready. Because being prepared is not optional anymore. It's about your health. It's about your family's health, even more than financial prowess. Health is everything. Imagine a spouse running low on blood pressure medication and your kid is sick with the flu and it's the middle of Sunday night and nothing's open. That's where this great all-family pharmacy takes care of it. You order online, their doctors are ready to handle your prescription and get your meds shipped out to you right away, even overnight, right to your doorstep. No insurance, no hassle, just peace of mind. So keep your medicine cabinet full and your mind empty of worry. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. That is your go-to. 10% off today, RSBN 10. Get everything essential to protect you and your family against all different kinds of diseases out there. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Rightside Broadcasting Network Live, All Family Pharmacy. And as the winning continues at the noon o'clock hour, good afternoon on the East Coast. Still a good morning to our friends on the West Coast. President Trump to make a big sports announcement probably within the hour or the next hour. It's scheduled for 1 o'clock Eastern. So stay tuned for that as we go through the winning success of this great American presidency. His cabinet hard at work every day. In fact, over 100 days now and moving faster than any other in modern American history. And we have a Congress ideally who is with President Trump, but there's slim majorities. And we know if the Democrats are to take a hold of the House once again, which could happen in 2026 with how narrow the leadership is of the Republican conference, they will be after this president. And they've already pledged to put out articles of impeachment, whether it's that crazy guy from the Detroit area, I can't even remember his name, or Raisin Cane Al Green, who was just ridiculous when it came to that address, that joint session of Congress 2 months ago to the day, when he was screaming at President Trump and then had to be removed from the chamber and was ultimately censured by his colleagues for his conduct and his immature behavior on the House floor. But we're sharing with you all of the excitement that President Trump, his agenda, is doing and working with the American people. And as he's put it, the tide of change is sweeping the country, sunlight pouring out of the entire world, and America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before. Because we know, as we saw on the proverbial campaign trail last week in Warren, Michigan, and Tuscaloosa, Alabama, President Trump is nonstop working to make America great again. And if we have that video ready, Mr. Director, the video that will give you chills, according to the White House, fun to play back all of the successes that have taken place over the course of 100 plus days. And if it's only 100 days, can you imagine the next 100 days? We'll show you that there now live.
President Trump kicking off another busy week at the White House.
It has been yet another eventful week in Washington.
The activity level is off the charts. The president dialed in. He is executing his agenda at a lightning fast pace. Now, here's something we rarely see in American politics. President Trump is actually keeping his campaign promises, and he's doing them as quickly as possible.
This administration's moving at political light speed, and they're just getting started.
We're going to have one shot at this, and no other president's going to do what I'm doing. Goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form. Have a good life. We will see you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's official. Former President Donald Trump will be running for president again in 2024.
Has Donald Trump got the stamina and the will to do this again? He's come under such tremendous...
Everything is on the line in this election.
A busy day in the campaign world up in Butler today. Former President Trump holding a rally at 5 o'clock.
He just tried to kill President Trump.
Not even an assassin's bullet could stop him.
feels like the climax of a superhero movie. The first act, up 2016. The second act, 2020. The third act, he almost dies. And then what happens?
Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
Rare in American politics, a presidential sequel.
He believes he has a, quote, mandate to bring common sense back to the country.
It's our time to take up the righteous cause of American liberty and begin the most thrilling days in the history of our country. This will be our greatest era. With God's help, over the next 4 years, we are going to lead this nation even higher, and we are going to forge the freest, most advanced, most dynamic, and most dominant civilization ever to exist on the face of this earth.
He has the opportunity to reset everything around the world.
Under President Trump's leadership, the message to America's enemies is loud and clear. Peace through strength is back.
No amount of hysteria, no amount of fear-mongering is going to shake the president's resolve.
This is the wholesale destruction of the liberal state. He is gutting liberal Washington, D.C. in a way that they say could be permanent.
47 means business. The White House is holding all the cards.
I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success.
The bottom line is whether you like Trump or you don't like him, you can't say that he's coming and not try to deliver, and he's doing so in historic fashion.
A tide of change is sweeping the country. Sunlight is pouring over the entire world. And America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before.
It is a golden era for America as President Trump highlights victories for the American people and sets the path for the next 100 days. President Donald Trump, in an exclusive interview on Meet the Press, outlined the historic successes of his first 100 days and charted the course for many more victories to come. President Trump sent a clear message. He will not relent in his mandate to secure our borders, rid our country of dangerous criminals, lower prices, and the globalist trade policies that have ripped off American workers and businesses for decades, and make America great again. Here are some of the top moments in case you missed them. On prices, prices are down on groceries, they are down for oil, prices are down for all energy, and prices are down at tremendous numbers for gasoline. On the border specifically, it's really secure. When you say that, it doesn't just sound good after being abused for years by an incompetent president. Now, on protecting Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security, we're not cutting Medicaid, we're not cutting Medicare, and we're not cutting Social Security. That's just another fake news narrative that's out there. They are cutting those benefits that are yours that you paid into if they are going to illegal aliens. We know that certain leaders like Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois were actually funding criminals with your tax money. That won't be happening, though, at the federal level. On deporting violent, criminal, illegal immigrants, we have thousands of people, some of the worst, the most dangerous on the earth, and I was elected to get them the hell out of here. And the courts are holding me from doing that. He went into depth on this with many interviews over the weekend, saying that there can't be millions of trials, and that due process does not stand the same technical legal term for those who are in the country illegally. They do have a process. That's deportation. That's coming back legally. And as Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem mentioned with the CBP app, that mention you're here illegally, leave, and then come back legally, there will be no problem, or face never being allowed to come back into the country because you broke the law in the first place. Now on tariffs, remember there are no tariffs if you build your product here. It's very simple, very easy. Build American, hire American, and no tariff. On the auto industry, what about the car business? They're going to make a fortune because of the tariffs. The head of the union, who is no fan of mine, speaking of President Trump, he's saying, wow, what's Trump done for the automobile? I can't believe it. We've been waiting 40 years for somebody to do what Trump is doing. And we saw that excitement, a narrative which really dominated the Warren, Michigan speech about automobile production. and about building up Detroit again and bankrupting Beijing. But we know for Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, and Otto Penn Biden, it was about bankrupting Detroit and building up Beijing, as then the Otto Penn senator from 2000 doing a cheers, clinking and clanking champagne glasses with then Vice Chairman Xi Jinping, now the premier totalitarian leader in China. How sick was that, with President Bill Clinton watching on hand? Well, maybe he was out for a date with his girlfriend at the time when that happened at the White House, but I digress. On Iran, I want Iran to be really successful, really great, really fantastic. The only thing they can't have is a nuclear weapon, because mutually assured destruction does not mean the same thing for the Ayatollahs in Iran. These are radicals. They're Islamic clerics that want death to Israel. They want death to America. They call us cockroaches. They hate the Judeo-Christian way of life. So the Iranian people are incredible, as President Trump said. I just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon because the world will be destroyed. Mutually assured destruction does not mean the same thing to a government like Iran. It's their way of life, covering people from head to toe, especially women. They're not allowed to drive. They only can have the slits so their eyes can look out. You can't even see who they are. And that's not even traditional Arab garb. Think about things like Aladdin or the great entertainment we've seen in the American film industry. That's traditional, beautiful Arab garb. Not covering someone like that. That's a radical Shia or Sunni mindset that is from these clerics that are issuing a theocratic, totalitarian mindset over their country. Iran was once a free nation. It could be that way again. But it's through peace, through strength, it's through the Abraham Accords that we will achieve that. Now on Doge, they found $160 billion worth of fraud, waste, and abuse. And I think he's done an amazing job. This is President Trump speaking about Elon Musk. I think his people have done an incredible job. We're not finished yet. He's leaving behind some very brilliant people. Thank you to our sponsors here at Rightside Broadcasting Network Live, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Events, questions, culture, whatever it might be here in the great US of A or even abroad. Like who will be the next Prime Minister of Canada? We found that out with Mr. Carney, and congratulations. President Trump mentioning that he had a great conversation with the Liberal leader and that they will build on the wonderful relationship. We're going to toss to someone live now here at Rightside Broadcasting Network.
Going to go. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, if you can explain how you think that process should play out.
Well, I appreciate that. Obviously, the president has a vision that, and really an almost entirely aligned Republican Party behind him in the House and the Senate. We so look forward to delivering on tax cuts and deregulation, all the pieces of the president's economic vision. Clearly, as Secretary of Agriculture, I am very focused on it. I'll be testifying tomorrow in the House, actually the Senate tomorrow, the House on Thursday, to talk about the agriculture piece of it. A lot of people don't understand that the USDA, almost 80% of our big budget is the SNAP food stamp program, to your point, and only about 15 or 20% is actually farming and ranching. So a big part of this, for my opinion, is that realigning USDA, obviously ensuring that the best parts of the food stamp, the SNAP program, stay in place, that we continue to feed those and provide that supplemental nutrition to those who need it the most, but also ensuring that we're prioritizing our farmers and our ranchers as we're moving forward.
Can you, if I could follow up?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
What would you tell Americans who rely on SNAP? Should they be expecting potential cuts to those services?
So I think it's really important also to understand that on SNAP and on food stamps, in the last administration, we had a massive influx of dollars, almost a 35 to 40% increase of the SNAP program under the Biden administration. That didn't necessarily mean more money to families. It just meant a massive new layer of bureaucracy, of NGOs, et cetera. So as we are realigning and reforming the SNAP program in partnership with our great friends, G.T. Thompson, John Bozeman, others on the Hill, that ensuring that as we are looking at that, the money goes to what it was intended, and that is a supplemental nutrition program for American families that need it the most. And that's what we're really focused on.
Secretary, on tariffs, to farmers who say they are feeling the impacts right now,
yes,
I'm wondering how long this is going to go on when trade deals will be announced. What can you tell them about the timeline?
Well, what I have been saying to our great farmers and ranchers, but especially our row croppers who are very much affected by the ongoing negotiations, that relief is in sight, that deals are being negotiated right now, that when the president says he's got 100 countries who are coming to the table, he is absolutely right. Next week, I'll be in England discussing these things. A few weeks after, I'll be in Italy. Then soon after that, Vietnam and Japan and India. So, and I'm reflective of a larger cabinet effort on behalf of this president to get out into the world, to expand the markets. And from, with a few exceptions, for the most part, our agriculture community, our farmers and our ranchers have been extremely gracious, supportive, excited, and encouraged, even in this time of uncertainty. And I know we've seen the market fluctuate, our soy and corn farmers especially, some of our hog farmers especially. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're realigning an entire world economy around American products. And that will affect our farmers and our ranchers more than any other, I believe, more than any other American producer and whatever they're producing. And so I'm actually so excited and I'm so encouraged. And the conversations that I have had, which I obviously can't talk about here, have been incredibly encouraging with our partners around the world. And so I'm just so grateful to President Trump. I'm so grateful to Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, to Jamieson Greer, who've been leading these efforts. I think that there are major breakthroughs that will be announced very, very soon.
Thank you guys for running.
Thank y'all so much. Great to see everybody.
And again, the most transparent administration in history, that is the USDA chief there, that is Brooke Rollins, who is doing an amazing job as agriculture secretary. Not an easy job, as she is out and about. As she mentioned, many international trips forthcoming. And this is where you'll see now this administration, the rest of them outside of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, of course, Vice President Vance, really going abroad, including the president, with a Middle East tour scheduled on May 13th through the 16th. So on border emergency, the big emergency right now is that we have thousands of people that we want to take out of the country. And we have some judges that we want everyone or everybody to go into court. This is President Trump speaking on this. We have millions of people. We're going to have millions of court cases? Question mark. No, I don't think we could do that. And it's just not, that's not due process because they're not citizens of this nation. On trade, we are making a lot of money. We're doing great. Again, we're losing more than $5 billion a day. We're going to be up at a point soon. We're going to be making money again every day. This is a huge problem to fix from the last administration, whether it's illegal migration coming in because they were trying to replace voters and create a permanent Democrat voting class because they know that their issues are unpopular. As the president said on the campaign trail last week, it's not 80-20 issues, it's more like 93-7, especially men and women's sports. Who wants men and women's sports? Who wants transgender athletes who have the strength of biological men to hammer volleyballs into people's heads and then cause severe brain damage, something that did happen? Or wrestling men against women, or karate. We saw it at the Olympics with boxing. It's just not right. What happened to the Me Too movement? It's rather disgusting, and especially when it boils down to it, as Riley Gaines and others have fought so hard for this issue, there should be no man changing in front of women and vice versa, so we can protect our women here in our great country. On peace with Ukraine, President Trump said, I do believe we're closer with one party and maybe not as close with the other. We're talking tremendous hatred between these two men, and it's sad what Zelensky and Putin have said in the war of words and the actual war, killing over 1.5 million people. And Putin should have never invaded. And he would not have invaded had President Trump been in office because he respected and feared him. Putin is a complicated figure, but in no way is President Trump a pawn of his or the Russia hoax, as we're seeing with the declassified information from Crossfire Hurricane. We know that crooked Hillary Clinton and her campaign spied on President Trump when he was a private citizen during his first presidential campaign. Where are the charges? Where are the further investigations? We hope that House Speaker Mike Johnson and James Comer and the other patriots, including Jim Jordan, continue to stay on top of this in the House and stop these communists from trying to usurp President Trump's executive authority. On top of it, they broke the law. So it's pretty clear cut there. On China tariffs, at some point, I'm going to lower them because otherwise you could never do business with them. And they want to do business very much. Their economy is really doing badly. Their economy is collapsing. We have China where we want them. This was not the case just a few short years ago. And Mr. Director, that sponsorship one more time. Thank you to Tax Network USA, tnusa.com/RSBN. Settle your back taxes today. Protect yourself from the IRS. 800-357-1415. Visit tnusa.com/RSBN or give a call today. Do not delay. 800-357-1415. Whether it's your recent taxes or back taxes that date back a few years, take care of that today to protect your assets and protect yourself from the IRS, which could be a real pain in the neck sometimes. tnusa.com/RSBN. Tax Network, the professional patriots at Tax Network USA Incorporated. Thank you for sponsoring us here on the right side of history at RSBN Live. And we'll see if there's any more press gaggles outside of the West Wing with respective secretaries from the cabinet. Again, great to see this unbridled transparency, something that did not happen under the Autopen administration of Joe Biden. I mean, we couldn't even find Pete Buttigieg when the train derailment happened in East Palestine, Ohio, if you remember that, all the chemicals and the poisons. And then Senator J.D. Vance at the time would take his stick and put it across the riverway. And all those different colors that came about and the poisons and the cancers that came across because of that. But he was allegedly Secretary Buttigieg on paternity leave and just not doing his job. And this guy wants to be president of the United States. Oh my goodness gracious. I think we could do much better with the MAGA movement, not a Manchurian candidate, a test tube individual such as the former Secretary of Transportation and failed mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He had to run so far away from South Bend because the way he insulted the African-American community there. They were not fans of his. The AME Church did not care for what Pete Buttigieg did or the lack thereof. His poor leadership skills somehow got him to Washington because, again, he was a DEI hire because of his sexual orientation and not because of his ability to actually lead the transportation department. But thankfully, Sean Duffy fixing all of that. And we wish Mr. Buttigieg and his minions well in Traverse City, Michigan. But again, please stay far away from our federal government because the pros are back in office. The true winners and the experts on many subjects there at the White House and in Washington, D.C. Once again, thank you to you, the American people, for voting common sense back in, not necessarily Republican or Democrat, but again, common sense, not conservative nor liberal, we the people versus the globalists. If you're just tuning in now, hello. On this beautiful Monday, Cinco de Mayo. We hope you had a chance to celebrate the Kentucky Derby and Cinco de Mayo over the weekend with your loved ones. And if not, it's never too late. Hope you can enjoy a margarita this evening and celebrate something that's actually more popular here in the United States than even in Mexico. This goes back to May 5th of 1862, the Battle of Puebla, when the Mexican army was successful against the Second French Imperial Army under Napoleon at the time. And this is also mixed up with the Mexican Independence Day, which is marked for September 16th. So fun little factoid there as you're enjoying your celebrations. What has made this great Western civilization stand so proudly, it's knowing where we come from and where we're going. So history important in all of this, as President Trump is someone who is quite a student of not only finances, but history and also geography. If you remember back from the campaign trail, Secretary Bobby Kennedy mentioning that President Trump, drew a full-scale map on a napkin of the Middle East and knew all of the key players and all of the extremist factions that had to be dealt with, and especially the good that came from the Abraham Accords. And we hope that continues in the next 100 days of this illustrious administration. Well, I'm Robert McNeely. It's always a pleasure to be with you here to see the White House, and I'm excited to see where these flagpoles will end up. President Trump recently going around the grounds and the in-town press pool asking, "Sir, what are you doing? Why are you going around the grounds?" And he said, "I'm going to look for a great place to put two big, beautiful poles, and they're going to have big American flags on them." So again, the entertainment, the love, the patriotism, the nationalism, all good things for revitalizing this nation. And it's fun to watch the soy boys and the crybaby far left globalists complain because the dirty secret is they're actually doing better in this economy. They're happy about President Trump being back in office. The media sure loves it because you have unbridled access to not only his cabinet, but to the president each and every day. He turns simple ceremonies that might last 15 and 20 minutes or are scheduled for that into an extra hour of press gaggle and questions so that you're hearing directly from your commander-in-chief. And we here at Rightside Broadcasting Network bring you the entire thing, all of the questions, all of the answers, so you can make up your own mind about the situation and maybe have a chuckle or two because President Trump has uncanny timing. He is perhaps one of the best comedians out there. And it is about truth and comedy because he can back it up with his great policies. And it's good to be smiling in America once again, not as fearful, optimistic about the future, because this is why he did this in the first place. And he broke some news over the weekend that he once again will not be accepting a salary. He takes $1 per quarter, and the rest of that gets donated to a charity of his choice, or he's asked staff in the past before, just like he did in the first term, who needs my help? Who needs money? And he famously saved a large section of the hallowed grounds at Gettysburg that were in disarray. They had no funding at the time. And he said, let's put that towards something good, remembering those fallen soldiers on both the American and Confederate sides, both Americans, but one North, one South, who sacrificed so much for liberty. And may we never get to that point again, willing to draw arms on one another, brothers and cousins and family members, because of a difference in political party and ideology. And you made sure about it, the viewer of this network and the great residents, the citizens of this nation on November 5th, peacefully and patriotically making your voices heard to bring back common sense to this country, to bring back someone who knows how to do the job rather than someone who does not have an aorta of humility in her body, but rather someone who is just trying to advance her own name and her own riches for self-serving globalist governance. We don't need communism. We need capitalism. We need freedom of speech, of thought, of religion. And President Trump bringing all of that back to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And day in and day out, it's exciting to see how relaxed he seems to be doing this, because this is the most stressful job that is out there, but he uses his economic prowess to get the job done. And we really highlighted this last week in Warren, Michigan and Tuscaloosa, Alabama with both speeches. Trump's tariffs are lifting some U.S. manufacturers. According to the White House, President Donald Trump's relentless pursuit of an American manufacturing renaissance is boosting demand for U.S.-made goods, boosting everything with smaller players reaping the early benefits. And this is according to the Wall Street Journal of all places, as companies onshore production and buy their products in America. A few examples from that story. We are swamped. We are running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in both Chicago and Cleveland, said Jack Schroen. He's the president of Juergens Incorporated, president of this great institution, which makes manufacturing tools and industrial screwdrivers, clamps, and hoists. Schroen said his factories in Ohio and Illinois are going like gangbusters, partly owing to new orders to customers looking to avoid paying import tariffs. Donnie Chaplin, the president of Grand River Rubber and Plastics in Ashtabula, Ohio, said he has a rush of new inquiries and orders. Two previous customers had switched Chinese suppliers a few years ago, came back in recent days wanting to buy rubber gaskets from Grand River once again for the plastic pails they manufacture. 3 manufacturers of oil filters also got in touch wanting to shift business from China to placing orders here in the United States. So altogether, the new business will be worth about $5 million a year if it is completed, or roughly 10% of Grand River's revenue. That might require the company to hire new employees and expand production lines. So a very good problem to have for employment in the Buckeye State of Ohio. The tariffs are a lifeline for the U.S. companies that sprang up during the COVID-19 pandemic to produce face masks, rubber gloves, and other personal protective equipment, those PPEs that were used in the hospitals, especially after shipments from Asia declined. If you can remember that was scary in the early days of COVID-19 when these things weren't rapidly and readily available. So the companies who struggled after this were, in the aftermath of that, the hospitals and clinics abandoned U.S. manufacturers and returned to low-cost suppliers out of a need, going to China. The U.S. executives had mentioned about that situation, but the new U.S. tariffs on rubber gloves from China have doubled the price from a few months ago, and the folks that are relying on China are scrambling for other resources, according to Alan Rust. He's the Chief Growth Officer for Safe Force Direct. We were getting stifled for a very long time, but recently we've been getting a lot more inquiries. And that's why this is very timely for our next sponsor, Colonial Metals Group. Thank you to Paul Stone, the CEO. Scan that QR code now, shield your savings, because as this tariff battle is ongoing and prices go up in certain arenas but get cheaper here in America, which is a good thing for American companies and American workers, regardless of all of that, China is playing war games. They're slapping tariffs on the United States, going after Taiwan. They're buying up prime farmland here in the United States, sending those crazy weather balloons that were really spy balloons in the past administration. So protect yourself against inflation and against the storms that are out there in the world. Scan that QR code now, shield your savings, freegoldguy.com/RSBN. freegoldguy.com/RSBN for everything you need to know to protect yourself against the hedge of inflation. Colonial Metals Group, the best in the business. They are sponsored by great people like Judge Jeanine Pirro, who completely endorses them. In fact, her complete and total endorsement, among other patriots. And we thank Paul Stone for his sponsorship here. Colonial Metals Group, thank you for helping RSBN to share the unbridled truth on the right side of history. Michigan-based Whirlpool, which assembles 80% of its U.S. appliance at domestic factories, says its Asian competitors have always had an unfair advantage over this American institution as they manufacture their appliances overseas but haven't been paying import tariffs on them since the year 2023, when one imposed during Trump's first term expired. So these rivals' access to cheaper components and steel in Asia help provide and give them a $150 retail price advantage on washers, according to Whirlpool. The chief executive, Mark Bitzer, said the latest tariffs on imported assembled appliances should help close the price gap, and these tariffs will finally help create a level playing field for Whirlpool. And he said that just last month, with all of the analytics coming in through April. Meanwhile, it's been reported that the local Excel dryer plant, according to William Gagnon, the chief operating officer, is unfazed. In fact, President Donald Trump's import taxes so far have been nothing but good news of one of the world's largest makers of restroom hand dryers. Gagnon credits President Trump's first-term tariffs with changing the math on production quality and location decisions. The president's second-term reciprocal tariffs might result in the elimination of trade barriers that present Excel's high-velocity hand dryers from dominating markets in countless countries such as Brazil and Argentina and Australia by making foreign goods more expensive. The import taxes make domestic suppliers more competitive while also discouraging Americans from purchasing cheaper Chinese copies of Excel's hand dryers. So the tariffs also offer hope of the prying open foreign markets and those who choose to cheat on the global scale. This is good news for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that produces these great hand dryers, and probably for those in your neck of the woods as well. Definitely promises made, promises kept by this administration as we go into what is a golden era for President Trump. And in case you missed it, and in case you missed all of the winning and the media blitz from just last week, Caroline Levitt highlights her MAGA Minute, and that is every Friday, give or take, so that you can get highlights in case you miss her press conferences or what's been going on a daily basis. All of us are busy, but that's why here at Rightside Broadcasting Network Live, we want to be your true live desk, your go-to, so you don't miss a minute of the action, whether it's inside the White House or in Warren, Michigan, or at the commencement ceremony at Tuscaloosa, Alabama, celebrating the great graduates of a fine institution. We want you to see everything and have this unbridled access to the government you put into place at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue or on Capitol Hill and just about everywhere in between, or even in your neck of the woods. And that's why it's incredible that this administration has the media prowess that it does to get out that information, whether it be on X or True Social or through Facebook, Instagram, all of their different accounts. This is a war room that is unlike any other, that was very successful on the campaign, but now is getting that message out to the American people on a daily basis. And in case you did not catch that MAGA Minute and Caroline Levitt's recent comments, we can play that back for you right now.
One of the main reasons President Trump won nearly 80 million votes, swept all 7 battleground states, and received a resounding mandate from the American public is because of the contrast he presented during the campaign and continues to this day. Everything President Trump's agenda is grounded in one thing: common sense. While the Democrat Party went off the deep end and doubled down on pure craziness, President Trump pledged to restore common sense back to the United States of America. In a little more than 3 months, that's exactly what he's done. He recognized that America is a sovereign nation that cannot survive if it does not protect its territorial borders. So he secured the border in record time and ended the mass invasion of tens of millions of illegal aliens into our homeland. The president knows his top responsibility is ensuring the safety of the American people, which is why he's arresting violent illegal alien invaders in our communities who threaten our public safety. And it's unacceptable to President Trump to allow rampant waste, fraud, and abuse of Americans' precious tax dollars, which is why the president championed a historic DOGE effort that saved nearly $200 billion already. President Trump knows America is blessed with an abundance of liquid gold below our feet in the form of fossil fuels. So he ended Joe Biden's reckless war on American energy and is restoring American energy dominance to lower costs and strengthen our national security. President Trump believes Americans should be free to drive whatever car they want, so he ended Joe Biden's disastrous EV mandate and promoted true consumer choice. President Trump stood up for the Constitution's promise of colorblind equality before the law, so he terminated radical DEI preferencing and federal contracting and directed federal agencies to relentlessly combat private sector discrimination. DEI seeks to divide and pit Americans against each other based on immutable characteristics. President Trump put an end to it. In President Trump's America, individual dignity, hard work, and excellence are the only things that will determine if you get ahead. President Trump is a proud free speech champion, which is why he ended Joe Biden's trampling of free speech rights and the federal government's censorship of American speech on online platforms. The president believes college students have a right to speak their minds and go to school safely. Again, common sense. So he took bold action to protect Jewish American students from harassment by pro-Hamas radicals on their campuses. And President Trump knows that America's children are our future, and he'll never stop fighting for them. That's why he ended the radical, un-American indoctrination of children by eliminating support for divisive, radical gender ideology and equity ideology, and why the president protected parents' fundamental rights. And lastly, the president believes in fundamental biology. Isn't that something? Which is why he made it the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 sexes, male and female. And because men and women are biologically different, President Trump ended the unfair, demeaning practice of forcing women to compete against men in sports and having their private spaces invaded. When President Trump completed promised a complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense, he meant it. And over the next 100 days, get ready for historic trade deals, budget deals, and peace.
Caroline Levitt setting the record straight as we are soon approaching President Trump's big sports announcement, perhaps pertaining to the NIL. We know where he was with legendary coaches Nick Saban and Senator Tommy Tuberville just last week for Alabama's commencement. So we'll see those comments forthcoming. Thank you to our sponsors at Rightside Broadcasting Network Live, All Family Pharmacy. Imagine receiving a medication and being told you can't have it. And it's not because it's out of stock, but because Big Pharma does not want you to have it. It's already happened in America. It can happen to you. And when others make it complicated, All Family Pharmacy makes it simple so that you don't have the stress and you're not jumping through hoops with your local pharmacy. They've got ivermectin. They've got other essential medications, methylene blue, 200 in fact, essential medications and antibiotics so that you can remain safe and protect your family and their health care. But we know that sometimes Big Pharma gets in the way. And because being prepared is not optional anymore, it's about taking care of you and yours. Say your spouse runs out of blood pressure medication on a Sunday and your kid down the hall has a terrible fever and everything's closed in the middle of the night. What do you do? Well, All Family Pharmacy takes care of it. You order online. Their doctors handle the prescription and your meds get shipped right to your door, even overnight. No insurance, no hassle, just peace of mind. Keep your medicine cabinet ready before you're left without options. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Code RSBN10, that's 10% off. Ivermectin, other essential medications, everything you need to keep your medicine cabinet just premier for you and your family. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us here on the right side of history. And we're getting close, less than 20 minutes to that scheduled announcement by President Trump regarding sports in the United States and how things have changed, how much money have poured into them. You know, in many cases, rightfully so, but at the same time, it costs a lot of money now. As, you know, Kid Rock, a different topic, but going to the White House with President Trump, who signed that EO regarding the things that Ticketmaster and other companies have been relatively guilty of the inflation and driving up the prices, price gouging as well. So some people have to choose going to some of their favorite concerts or seeing their favorite artists or going on their family vacation. And granted, you know, this is first world problems, but at the same time, you should be able to have some R&R and people working to making sure that it doesn't bust the bank just to go enjoy a sporting event, a concert, something you might be able to really do and enjoy that bonding time with family, because we know President Trump loves family, he loves his friends, he loves sporting events, talks about it all the time, attends UFC, has had countless teams to the White House, whether it's the Philadelphia Eagles, the Ohio State Buckeyes in regards to football, the Los Angeles Dodgers for baseball, their World Series championship last year. And he really gets into it, and you could tell how much people enjoy, whether it's those big CEOs and CFOs who were at the White House last week to enjoy the Oval Office. Many of these athletes getting a chance to see the Oval Office, and that was perhaps my favorite story from Thursday in Tuscaloosa when Coach Nick Saban, after they won the national championship in 2018, the players went to the White House for the Rose Garden ceremony, and then President Trump invited them into the Oval Office. One of the players asked what that big button was, the red button on the White House desk, the Resolute desk in the West Wing. And President Trump said right there in the Oval Office, why don't you push it and find out? And he said the player once got up that courage, according to Mr. Saban, and pushed the button, and then there came in the butler on the tray with the beautiful Diet Coke. It's the Diet Coke button. And for those who have seen it in person, it's really quite wonderful. President Trump loves his Diet Coke. And as Secretary Kennedy said, my boss loves fast food. So we don't want to take that away from you. We just want to give you healthier options and make sure that there are good ingredients in everything as we seek to make America healthy again. One of the big items for President Trump and Secretary Kennedy, the combining of traditional conservative and traditional liberal wings and factions of Maha MAGA to save this country. And that might have been my favorite endorsement process going back to last fall. It was a Turning Point action event all the way out in Arizona. The fireworks and the slow motion videos and the reels that you might have seen from that. President Trump uniting forces with Secretary Kennedy to save this great country, especially our young people, because we have a chronic disease epidemic in this country. Diabetes skyrocketing, autism skyrocketing. And Mr. Kennedy has said by September, we will have a clear-cut answer as to why we've seen these numbers spike as they have, especially when it comes to the autism epidemic in this great nation of ours, because people they're sick, they're suffering, and so much of it is because of environment, because of toxins and chemicals, and what this government has done. It almost reminds me of that Batman movie from 1989 when Joker is using all the pharmaceuticals and mixing chemicals into household products. Our government has allowed that to happen through the FDA, and that's no exaggeration. It's sad to think that that has happened, but people are waking up to it. You know, they're getting rid of the nonstick pans. They're seeing the chemicals that are in certain fast foods, and then they're wondering why. And not necessarily to point them out, but it's low-hanging fruit. Look at a company like Kellogg's and Corn Flakes. Why do they have 30-plus ingredients in their American version of their cereals when you go over to the UK and there's maybe 3 or 4, and they're all natural ingredients? Why is that happening? Why has our government allowed for the regulations to put poison and chemicals into everyday consumption of food, things our brains can't recognize, like high fructose corn syrup or different dyes? And sometimes you look at the label and you're like, what the hell am I putting in my body? And thankfully, some of these dyes have now been banned even before President Trump took that oath of office back on January 20th, but it needs to continue through the work of Mr. Kennedy and this great administration. Thank you to our sponsors here at Rightside Broadcasting Network. Brightcore presents Kimchi One. I've taken this before. It's the gut health, immune support, anti-aging strategy that makes sense for you, because all health truly begins with a few things. You got to drink a lot of water. You got to stay maha, go to the gym, go to church for your mental clarity, whatever it is you need to do in a healthy manner to get going. But gut health has a huge thing to do with it, which you might not know about. So give them a call today. Do not delay. 888-722-0936. Get 25% off with code RSBN. And that's mybrightcore.com/RSBN. But if you call them, you can receive up to 50% off Brightcore's Made in the USA Kimchi One. 888-722-0936, a great go-to for gut health, in addition to all of the wonderful things you do to stay healthy in this day and age. But that gut health, #1 on the list. So thank you to Brightcore, proudly made non-GMO right here in the good old US of A. 888-722-0936. Visit mybrightcore.com/RSBN. And we are moments away, roughly 13 minutes on the schedule, to President Trump making a big sports announcement. And we do not have any prior update as to what that is specifically across the channels, but we will bring it to you live for your viewing pleasure. I'm always excited to see when President Trump is surrounded by the topic of sports, whether it's celebrating great teams or something he wants to implement because he knows that the downstream of culture is politics, it's sports, it's what's happening within a country, within the federal city of Washington, or out in places like Denver, Colorado, up to Seattle, Washington, all the way down to Tampa, Florida, and everywhere in between in this great country of ours, because we know the woke mind virus, sadly, has swept across the land. But common sense coming back. I can't tell you the countless conversations I've had with people. Hey, I don't know if you know, but I always voted Democrat for president until this election because I wanted common sense. We wanted men out of women's sports. We wanted a strong American economy. We did not want $36 trillion in debt. but we wanted what took place over the first term of the Trump presidency. Strong policies, populist policies, not necessarily Republican, nor Democrat, nor conservative, nor liberal. But again, common sense, we the people, against a globalist agenda. And that means not being isolationist, as sometimes the narrative goes. That means talking to people, whether friend or foe, doing the Abraham Accords, building on all of the great trade deals, including USMCA, and getting rid of NAFTA. And 1,000 points of light. What the hell was that? As President Trump said when Bush 41 was leaving office, when Slick Willie Bill Clinton was entering, just told him to keep 1,000 points of light. And he's like, what is that? Is it a mandated government volunteer program? I mean, it's really the policies of the living former presidents that President Trump is standing up against because they were so bad for the nation, and in turn made number 42, 43, 44, and 46 very wealthy men through public service. I mean, at least Jimmy Carter went back to Plains, Georgia. Even Ronald Reagan went back to his ranch. They didn't become egregiously wealthy or erroneously wealthy from serving as president of the United States, but somehow Bill Clinton did, and George W. Bush and Barack Hussein Obama, and then the auto pen, somehow becoming very, very, very wealthy. And then auto pen, let's not forget the pardons when there was no charging of a crime. Preemptive for people like Dr. Fear, that's Anthony Fauci, or the laptop son, Hunter Biden. I wonder why. Or James Biden. Why did he receive a pardon? I wonder if we're going to have some investigations, Republican Congress. Let's get to it, my friends, because as President Trump said last week, if you are in the way, if you are an obstructionist, if you're a showboater like people like Thomas Massey, we'll call him out here on the network, you will have a primary. People will run against you. Again, it's not Republican versus Democrat. It's common sense. That's why Gretchen Whitmer, of all people, the governor of Michigan, she's the biggest Trump fan there is. You saw her on the tarmac. She graciously accepted the hug from President Trump, went up to speak in front of the Michigan National Guard because she wants steel production in her state. She's found common ground with President Trump visiting the Oval Office. He's praised her as well. So it's good to see that bipartisan action from this administration. Something we have not seen for a long time, nor was it even in the cognitive purview of Mr. Ice Cream Cone himself, the auto pen, because he said that with Mike Johnson in the Oval Office. Hey, Mike, I did not do what you're saying I did on a number of different issues. And Mr. Speaker saying to the president at the time, yes, you did, Mr. President Auto Pen. You did sign that into law. You did sign that EO. You can go check with your secretary right now. What's happening to you, sir? And that was the great cover-up. You want to talk about the big lie, you know, the narrative from people like Adam Kinzinger or Elizabeth Cheney or all of those other, Benny Thompson, who wanted to remove Secret Service detail from President Trump. Talk about collusion. The reason they were doing that is because they had an agenda to stop this citizen president from returning to the White House. But this media clearly, and it was said at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, decided to not look into the cognitive decline of the former president, and therefore lied to you, the American people, and simply turned the other cheek in a way that harmed your ability to make a clear decision. But you saw through that. And because of outlets like Right Side Broadcasting Network, we were able to make America great again and return this president to the White House, and to get people in the media and as special assistants to the president and perhaps the future national security advisor to shoot it straight with the American media. We have that playback from Stephen Miller just last week at the White House press briefing.
It is a sad reflection on the state of our media and many of the outlets represented in this room that you obsessively try to shill for this MS-13 terrorist, well, no coverage occurred in your papers about any of the Americans that were raped and tortured and murdered by the illegals that Biden was importing into our country. You know, you talk about due process. The Biden administration made the decision to give extensive due process to 2 trained Nicaragua terrorists that were apprehended at the border just a couple years ago. They were 2 gentlemen. They were from Venezuela. They were members of trained Nicaragua. The Biden administration Border Patrol apprehended them and made the decision to provide them with extensive due process, put them onto a program known as supervised release, and put them on ankle monitors so that they could go through a lengthy legal judicial determination as to whether these legal aliens who had just set foot on U.S. soil might want to live in the United States for the rest of their lives. What was the result of that decision? What was the result of that choice that was made? Those 2 men kidnapped a young girl named Jocelyn Ungary from her family. They beat her, they sexually assaulted her, they tortured her, they stripped her, they murdered her, and they dumped her body. That is what the Biden administration's policy was. Most of your papers never covered her story when it happened. To the extent that you covered it at all, it was because President Trump forced you to cover it by highlighting it repeatedly over and over again. He had to shame you into covering it. And each and every one of you that sides over and over again with these MS-13 terrorists, to the extent that you have the financial means to do so, you all choose to live in condos or homes or houses as far away from these kinds of gangbangers as you possibly can. If I offered any one of you a rent-free home with no taxes to pay in any of these gang neighborhoods, and I said your neighbors are MS-13 terrorists or Mexican mafia or Sinaloa cartel or trained Nicaragua, I couldn't pay you to live there. But yet you, with your coverage, are trying to force innocent Americans to have these people as their neighbors, and that one day their daughter may be abducted from their home and raped and murdered. So you're not going to get an ounce of sympathy from this administration or President Trump for the terrorists who've invaded our homes and our country.
Promises made, promises kept, telling it as it is here at the network and in the James S. Brady briefing room on the right side of history. Thank you to Special Assistant Stephen Miller for those comments from the White House just last week. And thank you to our sponsors as President Trump is about to make a big sports announcement. AngelPaste.com. Experience the miracle today. The Vitamin B Miracle Cream, the natural mosquito repellent, the orange option with vitamin C qualities, and so many more products. All natural, non-GMO, good and healthy for your skin to leave it glowing and shining, ready to paint the town red. Experience the miracle out of Spring, Texas, just off the Gulf of America. Christian owned. They hire veterans. AngelPaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And in addition to the Angel Paste, there is Angel Moms out there. Don't take my word for it. Don't take Stephen Miller's word for it. Take their words for it, who have lost their loved ones permanently because of preventable crime. They joined the White House just last week to showcase the evils and the horrors of illegal immigration.
My name's Angie Morphine Vargas, and I'm mother to Ruben Morphine. He was executed in the streets of Salinas in 1990. 34 years later, I could still cry for him like if it was yesterday.
My name is Maria Herrera Vega, and I'm the mother of Marine and Border Patrol agent Javier Vega Jr., our son who went by Harvey, who was murdered August the 3rd, 2014.
My name is Chris Odette. I'm an angel father. My daughter Krisha was killed September 12th, 2014 by an illegal alien in Rockwall, Texas.
This is my son Ryan and his girlfriend, both poisoned to death by illicit fentanyl. I can't bring my son back, but we are doing all of this to save the future Americans from being poisoned to death by fentanyl.
My name is Agnes Gibney. This is my son Ronald Da Silva, who was murdered by a previously deported criminal illegal alien gang member.
My name is Angel Mom Miriam Mendoza. This is my son, Sergeant Brandon Mendoza of the Mesa, Arizona Police Department, who was killed on May 12, 2014 by a repeat illegal criminal. Thank everybody in this administration for finally paying attention to criminals who harm Americans.
We thank the Trump administration from the bottom of our hearts.
Without them, there would be no justice for my daughter.
We're finally getting some justice in this country for our children.
This right here is what should be living here in America, not criminals that are coming in right now.
I can remember a personal story going back to, actually in second grade, we had classmates who lost their father to a very aggressive form of leukemia. And I can remember their grandfather at the funeral saying, no one should lose their child. And we don't know God's will in this life, and we don't know why good people suffered. We just reflected recently on our Lord and Savior over the Easter holiday that the resurrection does not exist without the passion, death of Jesus Christ. And he endured that in a very human way, even as God, fully man, with no sin on earth. He understands our pain. And this is why something so important, preventable crime, that's why you should go to the polls and vote. That's why you should be a precinct captain. That's why you should run for office yourself. Again, it's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about we the people and these parents who have lost their children. Think about that. And many of these some of the greatest among us, Border Patrol agents, police officers, those willing to put their lives on the line, murdered by thugs. They won't return until their families are reunited in eternity. And that's what President Trump's looking for. That's what we're looking for, that people don't suffer from these heinous crimes any longer. And in many situations, slow, painful deaths, horrible circumstances, from fentanyl to rape to murder. These aren't pleasant deaths. We remember people like Laken Riley, Rachel Morin, Jocelyn Nungery. What happened to Me Too, my friends? What happened to advocating for the women in this country who have been so affected by illegal immigration, including the men as well? That's why we speak out here at Rightside Broadcasting Network. That's why we want to share your stories. And if you have any for us, feedback at rsbn.tv. It's feedback at rsbn.tv. Share with us America First stories so that we can be a voice for you and a voice for the voiceless out there to convert minds, hearts, and souls to what's actually happening. Because you have a strong media narrative that somehow this doesn't matter, that the lives of Main Street could rather be just passed to the side. Well, in turn, people lose and have an empty seat at the dinner table for the holidays and for all days of the year, quite frankly. People have lost moms, brothers, sisters, dads, uncles, aunts, grandfathers, grandmothers, all the above. And we will keep speaking about this issue here on this network, and we're honored to do so for you. And we're honored to be on the right side of history with an administration who does not look to the air, does not lick their finger and see where the wind's going, but rather does the things to make this country safe and strong once again. Bill Clinton said it in his 1995 State of the Union, with Al Gore cheering him on, of all people, Mr. Climate himself. This is a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. And you know that too. I mean, I'm speaking to the choir because you're common sense people who watch this network, and it's imperative that you share with your friends and family by like, sharing, and subscribing what we're doing here, because you aren't racist. You don't hate other people. Think about the Brad Paisley song, American Saturday Night. It's a French kiss, Italian ice, margaritas in the moonlight. We're going to be celebrating a lot of that today on Cinco de Mayo. Perhaps you did with a mint julep over the course of Kentucky Derby weekend. This American experiment is about that melting pot. We love that. And you have a narrative coming from far-left globalists who seek to divide. There's nothing worse than the generational warfare and this class warfare that the left has wanted to inflict ever since Barack Hussein Obama came to the ranks of the American presidency, the divider-in-chief. I call President Trump not only the greatest commander-in-chief in modern times, but the disruptor-in-chief in a good way against the bureaucratic establishment. Well, Barack Hussein Obama was the discriminator in chief. What he sought to do to separate this country, and then his auto pen somehow got in there, somehow had 81 million votes and more votes than Barack Obama. I'll let you make up your mind about that one, but how ridiculous is that? Regardless, good times ahead. We are in a golden era in this country, and it's been an honor to highlight just some of those massive achievements over the course of 100 plus days over the course of our broadcast today. If you're just tuning in, it's 4 minutes after the hour. Good afternoon on the East Coast and the Midwest. Still a good morning if you're in the Mountain or Pacific time zones, or if you're all the way up in Alaska as well. It's still morning, so good morning. I'm Robert McNeely. It's a pleasure to be with you on Rightside Broadcasting Network Live as we await President Trump's scheduled to make a big sports announcement momentarily. Speaking of sports and culture and politics, get your bets and trades in today on one of our premier sponsors, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code right under my chin. I can almost talk and hit that right now, but trade on the most important events at Kalshi.com, KALSHI.com/RSBN. I think my tie matches the Kalshi color, or maybe just off color a bit, but a great thing to do, whether it's supporting our friends over here at Auburn University or the next big Super Bowl victory. How about egg prices? Will they continue to go down, or will there be a special election in Canada once again? Congratulations to Mark Carney, by the way. President Trump and him having some great conversations over the phone. Regardless of the question, Kalshi.com/RSBN is your place to go for trading and betting on all of the important questions facing Western civilization in today's day and age. Kalshi.com. Trade on the most important events. Scan that QR code now. Kalshi.com/RSBN. There's a live look at the White House. President Trump will be making an announcement momentarily on a big sports situation. We know that he was with Coach Nick Saban and former coach, the Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, now gubernatorial candidate regarding the NIL. So we'll see what those discussions are forthcoming. In the meantime, President Trump has been winning on the economy. And we've highlighted some of that here over the broadcast, but we can replay just some of the strong economic wins President Trump has secured with bringing $8 trillion of wealth into the United States thus far. It's just beginning. So we could scale back on that $36 trillion in debt. So we could play back that video on investments and how that's affecting you and everyday Americans.
We have more monies being spent than at any time in the history of our country. We're up to close to $8 trillion, I think I can say.
At the heart of the Trump administration's policies is one overarching goal. It is to stage the great American manufacturing comeback.
President Trump pushing ahead with his America First agenda.
Breaking news, Apple announced it's going to work with Foxconn to build a server factory in Texas by 2026.
The company says it is now planning to invest $500 billion in the U.S. economy.
The CEO of SoftBank pledging to invest $100 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
This is President Trump delivering on the promise he made to the American people on the campaign trail.
The idea is come to America, build greatness in America, build for the American customers.
Project Stargate.
It's a joint venture between SoftBank, Oracle, and OpenAI, and they're going to create a data center that will eventually be expanded to other states.
Shows people are listening to Mr. Trump's pitch to bring new industry to America.
This is the latest pledge from a foreign business leader promising to spend big in the U.S. as a result of Trump's election victory.
Founder of the property development company DeMac Properties is pledging the money.
President Trump announcing $100 billion investment from Taiwan Semiconductor, bringing the company's total American investments to $165 billion.
The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America.
Things happen so quickly in the Trump world, right? It's 100 days. Right. It feels like it's 100 months. This is leadership. This is taking control of the problem for military, for everything, for industrial, for our economy. Even if it causes short-term pain, the reality is it is the right decision.
All of the computer chip companies are coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen before.
NVIDIA says it will invest hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 4 years, part of the manufacturing renaissance under President Donald J. Trump.
Furniture maker Prepack are shifting their operations from Canada to North Carolina.
Johnson & Johnson says it will invest more than $55 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
And the auto companies are coming in. I can name 8 right now already, auto plants that are either starting or about ready to start construction.
Hyundai announced a $20 billion investment.
With your leadership, Mr. President, Hyundai Motor Group is proud to be a stronger partner in America's industrial future.
It is the automobile industry, and now those plants largely have stopped and they're moving them to our country. Honda is building one of the biggest plants.
Honda is producing its next generation Civic Hybrid in Indiana instead of Mexico.
Trump believes that the key to transforming America along the lines he wants, economically, socially, and politically, is to revive the factories and foundries across this country.
We're going to train people in trade craft, bring back trade craft to America so that people can work in these factories with great paying jobs. We're going to train them, and we're going to remake the American dream.
The trade story is certainly picking up speed here and pushing more countries to make these bigger investments.
It's another example of the Trump effect.
GE Aerospace announcing a nearly $1 billion investment into American manufacturing.
Eli Lilly announcing plans to expand its manufacturing here in the United States.
$27 billion additional spend, bringing our total to more than $50 billion.
The money's rolling in, and this is in the past 60 some odd days, Charles.
And these are deep-pocketed folks who want to have a relationship, and it's just smart moves.
We are CMA CGM, one of the leaders in shipping and logistics around the world. Today, we are investing $20 billion.
Foreign leaders from around the world, investors from Silicon Valley to Wall Street to Main Street have confidence again in our economy and our markets and in President Trump.
The Trump effect this morning, a string of massive wins for American manufacturing. The numbers speak for themselves. Wisconsin-based Clarios is putting up $6 billion to expand its American operation. And what's driving these decisions? Well, President Trump's aggressive Made in America policies and his commitment to bringing industry back to American soil. This is exactly what Trump promised. America first is back.
So winning, 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 continuing, and that is what is happening here. It's a reshifting of the American economy and the global supply line and trade so that it's a rebirth in American economic manufacturing and prowess in this great nation. We once were able to do that. Before World War II, post World War II, we were the great exporters. That's the dirty little secret. It wasn't those scams and those new deals that happened from far left economic Keynesian policies. It was manufacturing, it was steel production, it was everyone rolling up their sleeves and those great public-private partnerships that put Americans back to work. It's putting our auto workers in a position where they can compete to build up Detroit, as it was spoken about last week, rather than supporting Beijing. And there might be a couple of hiccups down the road, but these are minor things. As President Trump said, do you want your kid to have 30 play dolls that might have poison lead on them from China, or maybe 2 to 10 really, really nice ones that are, say, American girl dolls, if they're still making those? That's what you want. You want it done here, and we could do it here. Think about it. I mean, from sea to shining sea, the best, the brightest, the smartest are in America. And it's sad to see what his living predecessors did to the American Midwest, to manufacturing, to all of the economic prowess this country once had. Remember, we did not have a federal income tax until the year 1913. And President Trump speaks on it often with the Blue Ribbon Committees. We had so much money in the 1880s and 1890s leading up to the McKinley and Roosevelt administrations that we didn't know what to do with it. This helped lead all the conservation efforts by President Roosevelt to protect our western lands. And so you can go and see all the beautiful things like Zion National Park or Glacier out in Montana. So many beautiful options, including our Grand Canyon. It's because of what we were able to do with our American vision. That's happening once again. He is the disruptor in chief. stopping the globalist, internationalist, bureaucrats, the people who like to go to their big conferences and sip on the most expensive of champagnes and dine in what might otherwise be questionable. This president is sick of people like that. He would rather hang out with the everyday American. And we see it on a regular basis. We see his enthusiasm, especially speaking to students last week at the University of Alabama. May 1st, 2025, a day they'll never forget. I was joking around during coverage of that I actually fell asleep during my graduation because of how boring that speaker was. But I was the first to go get my diploma. So they had to kind of, wake me up and say, hey, Bobby, go get your diploma. And I'm still proud of that, but it's something that I did not have the President of the United States at my graduation ceremony. So a moment that was very near and dear to me, having family gone to the University of Alabama, and to see the joy in all of their eyes and their hearts as they move on from Tuscaloosa into the big time. And President Trump said, do not lose momentum. That's what's key about it. Use especially your young years to build that empire, that prowess. And it's whatever you want to do, whether it be in business, in finance, in teaching, in nursing. Go out there and get it. Think big. You got to think big. You got to think in general. So think big, think the biggest goals, turn those dreams into reality, write them down. And in the meantime as well, Coach Saban reminding us it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. A good line that it's been a long time since I've heard that, and it was awesome to listen to that advice from two legends where legends are made at the University of Alabama. We are excited at 15 minutes after the hour because President Trump is going to make a big sports announcement from the White House as we recap what took place just a week ago, 100 days into office. This president is not backing down. He's not stopping. We're seeing all of the success that this agenda has brought about. And he is speaking to the media on a near daily basis now. Everything seems to turn into a press conference, whether it's inside the Oval Office or like last night aboard Air Force One en route back to Joint Base Andrews in Washington, D.C. But the president's agenda is full steam ahead. And he has all of that ready for you, for your viewing pleasure, so you know where he's at 100 plus days into the White House. And I don't think that video is quite yet ready for you, but we will have that as soon as possible, as President Trump is going to make this big sports announcement. And I'm curious to see what it is. Again, because he was with Coach Saban and also with the legendary senator and former coach of Auburn University, that is Mr. Tuberville himself, Tommy Tuberville, running for governor of Alabama. And we'll see forthcoming what will be happening with NIL and anything else that might be relating to sports as well. So we look forward to that in the next few minutes there. As much has broken over the course of the last few days here with NPR and also PBS being defunded by the government per the executive order of President Trump's because of the illicit content and, quite frankly, dangerous stuff they were putting out there that's not really for children's eyes. So not even a right or left issue, more just perverted at the end of the day. President Trump said, you have all the money in the world, you're privately funded, you have free speech, go for it. But the federal government will not be funding that, including Harvard. They won't get the federal funds anymore because of going against federal law, not protecting Jewish students on their campus, among other atrocities committed by the university. And in turn, they will probably lose their tax-exempt status. And they will go on and complain about $2 billion when they have an endowment of $53 billion. Where is all that money going? So I believe what President Trump said back in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He will not be seeing leaders coming up from the Harvard Crimson, but rather places like the Alabama Crimson Tide. I love that line because it's true. The true Ivy League schools now are in places like the SEC where it matters more. Are different institutions or even outside of college. It's okay if you don't go to college. go learn a trade, apprentice, and in most cases, you're coming out of there with no debt, making a lot of money, and helping people in the process with a very fulfilling career. Nothing wrong with that. It's all about the dignity of work, and this president just wants you to find what you're called to do. And not only us as a nation to turn back to God and to bring religion and faith back into this great society, but also to save your ability to seek out the American dream. So as we look towards 1:20 about on the East Coast, it's still morning on the West Coast. Welcome to RSBN. If you're just joining us, I'm Robert McNeely, and we are offering unbridled access to the White House, to Washington, D.C., everything inside and outside the Beltway. And we're excited to be here with you on Monday, Cinco de Mayo. Hope you're celebrating. Of course, this is reflecting upon May 5th of 1862, the Battle of Puebla, the Mexican army defeating the Second French Empire, a very powerful army at the time under Napoleon. It's often mixed up with Mexican Independence Day, which is actually September 16th, but Cinco de Mayo actually more celebrated here in the United States than in Mexico itself. So it shows you our cultural heritage, a melting pot, proud of all different backgrounds, and proud especially of legal immigration. And we will keep advocating for that here on the right side of history. And it's not even right versus left anymore. It's the right as in the correct side of history. Maybe we can display that as well as Correct Side Broadcasting Network. I'm just kidding. But Right Side Broadcasting has a nice ring to it, RSBN. As we are looking at the White House, President Trump on a somewhat rainy, overcast day. And we are going to a brief commercial. We'll be right back with you. Stick with us here as President Trump about to make a big sports announcement. Stick with us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeely. As President Trump is making a big sports announcement at the White House at 1:23 Eastern Daylight Time. And this administration, so forthcoming, so transparent, will actually do a playback of Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins touching on many topics and her upcoming trips around the world.
A couple questions. Yes, sir.
House Republicans, they're working on President Trump's big, beautiful bill. On the ag portion,
yes,
seems like there are concerns about how the cost sharing on SNAP is going to go. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, if you can explain how you think that process should play out.
Well, I appreciate that. Obviously, the president has a vision that, and really an almost entirely aligned Republican Party behind him in the House and the Senate. We so look forward to delivering on tax cuts and deregulation, all the pieces of the president's economic vision. Clearly, as Secretary of Agriculture, I am very focused on it. I'll be testifying tomorrow in the House, actually the Senate tomorrow, the House on Thursday, to talk about the agriculture piece of it. A lot of people don't understand that the USDA, almost 80% of our big budget is the SNAP food stamp program, to your point, and only about 15 or 20% is actually farming and ranching. So a big part of this, for my opinion, is that realigning USDA, obviously ensuring that the best parts of the food stamp, the SNAP program, stay in place, that we continue to feed those and provide that supplemental nutrition to those who need it the most, but also ensuring that we're prioritizing our farmers and our ranchers as we're moving forward.
Can you, if I could follow up?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
What would you tell Americans who rely on SNAP? Should they be expecting potential cuts to those services?
So I think it's really important also to understand that on SNAP and on food stamps, in the last administration, we had a massive influx of dollars, almost a 35 to 40% increase of the SNAP program under the Biden administration. That didn't necessarily mean more money to families. It just meant a massive new layer of bureaucracy, of NGOs, et cetera. So as we are realigning and reforming the SNAP program in partnership with our great friends, G.T. Thompson, John Bozeman, others on the Hill, that ensuring that as we are looking at that, the money goes to what it was intended, and that is a supplemental nutrition program for American families that need it the most. And that's what we're really focused on.
Secretary, on tariffs, to farmers who say they are feeling the impacts right now,
yes,
wondering how long this is going to go on, when trade deals will be announced, what can you tell them about the timeline?
Well, what I have been saying to our great farmers and ranchers, but especially our row croppers who are very much affected by the ongoing negotiations, that relief is in sight, that deals are being negotiated right now, that when the president says he's got 100 countries who are coming to the table, he is absolutely right. Next week, I'll be in England discussing these things. A few weeks after, I'll be in Italy. Then soon after that, Vietnam and Japan and India. So, and I'm reflective of a larger cabinet effort on behalf of this president to get out into the world, to expand the markets. And from, with a few exceptions, for the most part, our agriculture community, our farmers and our ranchers have been extremely gracious, supportive, excited, and encouraged, even in this time of uncertainty. And I know we've seen the market fluctuate, our soy and corn farmers especially, some of our hog farmers especially. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're realigning an entire world economy around American products. And that will affect our farmers and our ranchers more than any other, I believe, more than any other American producer and whatever they're producing. And so I'm actually so excited and I'm so encouraged. And the conversations that I have had, which I obviously can't talk about here, have been incredibly encouraging with our partners around the world. And so I'm just so grateful to President Trump. I'm so grateful to Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, to Jamison Greer, who've been leading these efforts. I think that there are major breakthroughs that will be announced very, very soon.
Thank you guys.
Thank y'all so much. Great to see everybody.
So nice to have cabinet members come out and speak to the press, something that we did not see in the last administration because of all the DEI hires, and how refreshing it is to have people who are actually experts in their fields, who addressing the press, unafraid of that, and talking on a number of different topics. So several things happening over the course of the last few days, all the successes of the 100 plus days in office, the media blitz, President Trump announcing again that he is giving away his salary every quarter. Also, he wants to reopen Alcatraz, made famous by several movies. I think the most recent from 1996, The Rock, a great film with Sean Connery and, of course, Nicolas Cage. But we'll see that perhaps reopening. The 2 flagpoles that will be going up at the White House at some point. And we see the Oval Office, how beautiful, how ornate it is on a daily basis with all of the gold, 20-plus portraits of former presidents and American leaders that have left this nation better than they found it. And President Trump really filling some big shoes, but doing it in his own extraordinary way and being the man called for such a time as this, something he reflects on often, surviving a would-be assassin's bullet back last July, and how heroic it's been ever since. President Trump becoming the 47th commander-in-chief, also mentioning that he is ready to pass on those reins after this term in January of 2029, and mentioning some names that it could be his Vice President, J.D. Vance, it could be the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, whoever it is, it should be a good, solid, strong MAGA Republican focused on carrying this nation into the future. And both of those gentlemen doing extraordinary jobs in their own right to secure this country internationally, but also fight for this agenda that's fighting for middle-class Americans on a daily basis. As we approach 1:30 on the East Coast, President Trump is set to make a big sports announcement. And we'd like to thank our sponsors at mypillow.com/RSBN. The Parakel bed sheets closeout sale, all colors, all sizes, $25 thanks to Mr. Mike Lindell. Support his efforts and RSBN by shopping now at mypillow.com/RSBN and save with code RSBN. Very easy to remember. Do not delay. Call today, 800-836-7566. The Parakel bed sheets. If you want a good day and a productive one, whether it be R&R with family or working hard at your respective job, well, the best way to do that is a good night's rest. And there's no one better than Mike Lindell and his team in Minnesota, giving you quality, high-end products for very affordable prices. MyPillow.com/RSBN. Thank you to the purveyor of free speech, the fighter for election integrity, and all-around great guy, Mike Lindell. MyPillow, thank you for sponsoring us here at Rightside Broadcasting Network. There's a live look again of the White House in Washington, D.C., the federal city, a bit overcast and cloudy today. We had some raindrops earlier, but looks like it's all settling in along that green lawn that was the host and site of the Easter egg roll a couple of weeks ago, with all of the adorable kids and their family members, and a great fun time for staff to enjoy a little bit of R&R right after the Easter holiday. But of course, Easter goes on in the calendar for roughly 50 days. So much to be grateful for and thankful for as we celebrate a nation returned to constitutional principles, to celebrating religious liberty, and to securing the future of not only our nation, but global security, peace through strength. President Trump working overtime to see all of these things come together. $8 trillion invested into this country thus far, and it's just the beginning. President Trump recognizes that shifting the global supply line is crucial in all of this to strengthening, once again, the American dollar, and in turn, so you can keep more of your hard-earned wealth, but also so you don't have to rely on paper-thin money that can be inflated as it was, especially in the last 4 years under the Otto Penn presidency. So much of what President Trump has accomplished thus far is the antithesis and so much better than his living predecessors who have failed this country really over the course of the last 30-plus years, really in my lifetime. I look to Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, and Otto Penn, Joe Biden, arguably could be amongst the worst presidents to have ever served our country because they put special interests, they owed people, and it was their donors, really Republican and Democrat, that they owed at the end of the day. George W. Bush starting a war in Iraq that should have never happened. And granted, hindsight is 20/20, but where was he when the intelligence agencies told him there was yellow cake, there was weapons of mass destruction, and those could not be found? And I'm not defending Saddam Hussein, he's a bad guy, but our CIA and intelligence agencies helped install him. I remember Don Rumsfeld, a good man economically, but on foreign policy was way too hawkish, shaking hands with Saddam Hussein way back in the day. And as bad as that whole situation was in the Middle East, at least Saddam left the Christians alone. What happened with that invasion, Mesopotamia, the ancient ruins that were there were completely destroyed, completely leveled, completely gone. And President Trump talks about that with today, Russia versus Ukraine, those beautiful, ornate Eastern Orthodox buildings wiped off the face of the earth because of missiles and bombs and scary drone technologies that can literally spit fire from a mile in the sky along the ground, just torching soldiers on both sides. Think about what Putin has done to his own soldiers. They went into Chernobyl to secure an area, and that still has an incredible high amount of radioactivity from the Chernobyl disaster back in the 80s. So the half-life on all that radiation is still very powerful, and many of them suffering from radiation poisoning because of this nonsense. And a lot of it you can reflect back upon Autopen Joe Biden. And as President Trump asked, should we call him sleepy or crooked? And then he takes a voice vote in Warren, Michigan, or wherever his rallies might take him. But we know if President Trump was in office at the time, Vladimir Putin would not have invaded Ukraine. And you have these two terrible dictators who are not freedom fighters, but rather authoritarians going at each other, the two Vladimirs, who have harmed so much of society. But that, God willing, is coming to an end thanks to the leadership of President Trump and thanks to the minerals deal that's been brokered and negotiated just roughly about 9 days ago before Pope Francis's funeral at the Vatican. So you have all of that developing and forthcoming, and those minerals will be so good for the United States, and again, a way for us to not only be repaid for the nearly $360 billion in taxpayer assistance and military aid we've given to the Ukraine, but also what they owe us. And then at the same time, we can get off of that dependence on Chinese goods, because we should be self-sustaining completely in this country. We're sea to shining sea. We're a massive nation, and of roughly 370 million plus by my last count, if I'm correct about that. But we need to, once again, be making things in America, restructuring our steel production, all of our manufacturing, and securing our borders. We're doing that under President Trump. Even Democrat governors like Gretchen Whitmer can't help but thank President Trump for his leadership on these countless issues, especially when it comes to each respective state. Even back in the first term, during the fires in Northern and Central California, Gavin Newsom, of all people, said, "Promises made, promises kept. Thank you, Mr. President, for all of the assistance and for all you do to protect the nation." So admiration on both sides, even though the left is having a hard time literally throwing spaghetti at the wall to see where it sticks. And sadly, I think they just leave the residue of a red pasta sauce because it can't stick at the end of the day when the truth of Teflon Don is non-stop. I wonder if he uses avocado spray, because you should be if you're part of the Maha agenda. But we are awaiting President Trump to make a big sports announcement from the White House today, as he is busy every single day making this country great again. And we have another video for playback for you from the president for your viewing pleasure.
President Trump kicking off another busy week at the White House.
It has been yet another eventful week in Washington.
The activity level is off the charts. The president dialed in. He is executing his agenda at a lightning fast pace. Here's something we rarely see in American politics. President Trump is actually keeping his campaign promises, and he's doing them as quickly as possible.
This administration's moving at political light speed, and they're just getting started.
We're going to have one shot at this, and no other president's going to do what I'm doing. Goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form. Have a good life. We will see you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much.
official. Former President Donald Trump will be running for president again in
Has Donald
2024.
Trump got the stamina and the will to do this again? He's come under such tremendous...
Everything is on the line in this election.
A busy day in the campaign world up in Butler today. Former President Trump holding a rally at 5 o'clock.
He just tried to kill President Trump.
Not even an assassin's bullet could stop him.
It feels like the climax of a superhero movie. The first act, up 2016. The second act, 2020. The third act, he almost dies. And then what happens?
Donald Trump will become the 47th President of the United States.
Rare in American politics, a presidential sequel.
He believes he has a, quote, mandate to bring common sense back to the country.
It's our time to take up the righteous cause of American liberty and begin the most thrilling days in the history of our country. This will be our greatest era. With God's help, over the next 4 years, we are going to lead this nation even higher, and we are going to forge the freest, most advanced, most dynamic, and most dominant civilization ever to exist on the face of this earth.
He has the opportunity to reset everything around the world.
Under President Trump's leadership, the message to America's enemies is loud and clear. Peace through strength is back.
No amount of hysteria, no amount of fear-mongering is going to shake the president's resolve.
This is the wholesale destruction of the liberal state. He is gutting liberal Washington, D.C. in a way that they say could be permanent.
47 means business. The White House is holding all the cards.
I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success.
The bottom line is whether you like Trump or you don't like him, you can't say that he's come in and not try to deliver, and he's doing so in historic fashion.
A tide of change is sweeping the country. Sunlight is pouring over the entire world. And America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before.
Literal chills and goosebumps. God bless President Donald Trump. We have him live now, and we'll toss it to the White House for this big sports announcement.
Very, very amazing, I think, for D.C., but even for the country, because it's, to me, a very big deal. I'd like to thank NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, Washington Commanders owner Josh Harris, and Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, Secretary Scott Turner, Secretary Doug Burgum, and I see Howard Lutnick is here too, Commerce, and some others that if I could see past the press, I'd name you, but I can't. I'm pleased to reveal that the 2027 NFL Draft, that's a big thing, will be held right here in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., on the National Mall, and you get a little glimpse of it. I was just saying to Roger, I don't think there's ever been anything like that. That's a good idea. In fact, maybe we could use it for other things also. I have an idea. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be something that nobody else will ever be able to duplicate that, I don't suspect. It's very exciting. Every year, hundreds of young football players have their dreams come true as the NFL teams across the land, and you just saw that last week, select the best young players in America to join their ranks. Hundreds of thousands of football fans will travel all across our country to cheer them on in person. We expect, would you say, more than 100,000 people, I think. What is the capacity would you think it can hold? Because the mall can actually hold up to 1 million people if you go all the way back. What do you think?
Over 3 days, we'll be over 1 million.
Oh, yeah, you're going to boosting local businesses and bringing jobs and tourism to the heart of our capital. The draft is a celebration of one of our country's most cherished cultural institutions and the annual highlights for football fans everywhere. Everyone in the world is going to be watching. We look forward to welcoming people from across the nation, from all over the world. Last month, the Washington Commanders and the D.C. government also announced a major deal to build a brand new 65,000-seat football arena at the site of the RFK Stadium in eastern Capitol Hill, and I don't think there is a better site anywhere in the world than that site.
Incredibly exciting.
You know, he's a friend of mine. He's a very successful guy. There's a reason for it. It's amazing. It sat there for years, and people were talking about stadiums in 25 different sites. I said, they're not talking about the best site. That's the best site there is. Bringing professional football back into the district from Maryland. And not only are these announcements great for the NFL, but they also advance the mission of making Washington, D.C. safe and clean and beautiful. And we're working very closely with the mayor, as you know, and we've made a lot of improvements in the last few months, and it's getting to look really strong. Crime is way down, and there's a good relationship we have going with Muriel. So I want to thank you very much. And would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. President.
The mayor, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, sorry. Well, greetings. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of the best city in the world and also the sports capital. And we are delighted to be here with the Washington Commanders, the NFL, and the president to talk about this very exciting announcement for Washington, D.C. We believe in investing in sports because they have helped us transform neighborhoods, and the NFL bringing this event to the nation's capital will help us fill hotel rooms, our restaurants, and Americans from all 50 states will come to their nation's capital and enjoy our beautiful city and museum. So we're just delighted to be here, and we want to thank everybody for all the hard work to get here.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. President, thank you. We're honored to be here in the Oval Office, and to have you announce the 2027 NFL Draft is a special treat. So thank you for your support. Also, thank you for your support in the Commanders' new stadium. We agree it's going to be a great site. We think it's going to be great for our fans here, and it's great to come back home. And so we're very excited about that. Josh is leading the way on our behalf, and the mayor, so we thank both of them for that. We also want to thank you because in the first term you helped us get a Canadian trade deal, which we want to make sure we note again and make
Canada
sure you know.
Does not like me too much. They gave a great American company a lot of money that you deserved, frankly. So.
Thank you. The draft has really become one of the great entertainment and sports events. Just a week ago in Green Bay, we had over 600,000 people attend. The year before in Detroit, we had close to 800,000. As the president remarked, we believe we'll be well over 1 million when we come here to D.C. in 2027. So we not only believe it's a great site, we believe it's consistent with what the president said, which is investing in our communities, investing specifically here in the nation's capital, one that I grew up here in Washington, D.C., and is particularly important. We think we can have a tremendous impact on this community, and it will not just be an event, it will be something that will show the world how far the nation's capital has come and where it's going. So we're very excited about that. And we thank everybody here. We thank you for your support. We know it's going to be a great event. And Mr. President, we thank you again.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good luck with it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you very much. We wouldn't be here without you. Thank you for your leadership in terms of the stadium, and now, what a great day for Washington. I mean, to host the NFL Draft in 2027 on the Mall. I believe we'll get over 1 million people, and it's going to be an amazing day, and it'll showcase what Washington's all about, but it'll also showcase what our country's all about. Washington is the gateway city to our country, and it'll be an amazing day, and we can't wait to get started. And I couldn't have done it without my partners, Roger Goodell, thank you, and Mayor Muriel Bowser. And we're ready to get to work, and I can't imagine RFK coming back. I grew up here. D.C. used to stop and on Sundays, and everyone would be inside watching football, or everyone would be glued at the stadium. And so we want to bring that back. And football really is as essential to the culture of America. We all love it. We all watch it, and it brings people together. And so what a great way to celebrate the United States of America, the NFL, and the Washington Commanders. And President Trump, we leave on your desk a Trump jersey. You are the ultimate commander, so it is a Commander's jersey. There's no bird on it, but We appreciate you, and thank you for everything you've done, and look forward to the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I have to say that Josh had a very good draft a short while ago. You have a very good quarterback.
You do.
A great quarterback, I think. Yeah,
Very
great.
excited about Jaden.
Any questions, please, about the stadium or any of it? Yeah, please. Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. About the draft, and I would like to upcome an event that it was already mentioned here, the World Cup. Although United States, the passion here is football. For the World Cup next year, how do you envision, Mr. President, this event here in the United States?
It'll be fantastic. I worked very hard to get the World Cup. It was, in fact, I think I have the trophy right here, right behind you. Don't have a picture taken with Roger and that trophy, by the way. But no, they brought it in. Johnny, who's a good guy, but he brought that in. That's the actual trophy. It's interesting that you asked that. And it's made at Tiffany's, and they're leaving it here until just before the actual World Cup. Then it goes to the champion. But that's very exciting. We have the Olympics. So we have both of them. I worked very hard in getting both, and I said, you know, I'm not going to be able to be there as president. And then a strange thing happened, and it turned out I became president not for the term that I was supposed to be. I became president while we have the Olympics and the World Cup, and we have something that maybe surpasses everything, the 250th anniversary of our country. So that's going to be great. That's going to be a very big event, a year-long event. So thank you for the question. Very nice question. Yeah, please.
Yes. So you've often said you want U.S. to be bigger, better, and stronger. Currently, Russia is the biggest country in the world by landmass, followed by Canada and then China. So when you say that you want to annex Canada, is it so that it would be the biggest country in the world?
No, I never even thought of it that way, although I am a real estate developer at heart. I've never heard that question. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, will you have to hire more security and police in order to accommodate the 1 million people coming in for the NFL draft?
I think that there'll be something, and I know Roger will work it out, and Josh and all of us will work it out. It's such an honor to have that. I think it'll be great for everybody, great for our country. It'll be something very special. There's no scene like it. There's no site like it. My whole life was based on sites, locations, and as soon as I looked at that rendering, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to really be beautiful. You know, interestingly, I didn't know exactly where it sat relative to the Capitol, but the stadium, if you go back, is right behind the Capitol, miles behind, but nevertheless visually right behind it. So it's going to be an architect's dream, whoever the architect is chosen, and the owner. It's going to be something special. I think it's going to be great for the area. Going to be, it will be top of the line. I know these people very well, and they only know about top of the line. And I would say that more will be put into the stadium than would be put into a identical stadium of a similar size. I think they're going to do a special, because of the importance of the location. I have no doubt they'll do a special job. Yeah, please.
Can you explain a little bit about how you would implement tariffs on the film industry, kind of how that would work?
Well, that's a different story, but our film industry has been decimated by other countries taking them out, and also by incompetence, like in Los Angeles. The governor is a grossly incompetent man. He's just allowed it to be taken away from Hollywood. Hollywood doesn't do very much of that business. They have the nice sign and everything's good, but they don't do very much. A lot of it's been taken to other countries, and a big proportion. And I'm actually going to meet with some because, there's some advantages, I guess, and I'm not looking to hurt the industry. I want to help the industry. But they're given financing by other countries. They're given a lot of things. And the industry was decimated. If you look at how little is done in this country now. You think we were the ones. We used to do 100, not long ago, 100%. Now we do almost like very little. It's shocking. Are you in that business too? Because he's in so many businesses. You could explain it, but it's not a good situation. So we're going to meet with the industry. I want to make sure they're happy with it because we're all about jobs. That's all what it's very important. It's a big industry. But it's an industry now that's it's really left. It's abandoned the USA where it started. And we'll get it back. Yeah, please.
Thanks, Mr. President. First, I just want to thank you for letting us in here. I'm with Zero Hedge, and the last administration banned us on social media, so we're really grateful to be in the White House. And this is not exactly sports related, but I've been dying to ask you this question for a long time, which is that 2.5 years ago, the Nord Stream pipeline blew up. Yeah. And despite what people like John Brennan and all the hawks said, you were one person who said Russia probably did not blow up its own pipeline.
If you can believe it. They said Russia blew it up, yeah.
And so I'm wondering, now that you're president, if you would consider launching a formal investigation into what happened there and who actually did blow it up.
Well, probably if I asked certain people, I'd be able to tell you without having to waste a lot of money on an investigation. But I think a lot of people know who blew it up. But I was the one that blew it up originally because I wouldn't let it be built. And then when Biden got in, he allowed it to be built. And it's very interesting. But I think Russia, with the price of oil right now, oil's gone down, I think we're in a good position to settle. They want to settle. Ukraine wants to settle. If I weren't president, nobody would be settling. They're losing 5,000 people a day. Think of it. Here we talk about football. They're losing 5,000 people on average a week, mostly Russian soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers, 5,000 a week, not including people that are, killed as missiles go into areas that they shouldn't be. It's a very terrible thing, and I think we've come a long way, and it could be something will happen, but hopefully it will. As you know, President Putin just announced a 3-day ceasefire, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot if you knew where we started from, because they were not. We had a president that for 3 years didn't speak to Putin, and it all shouldn't have happened. This is a war that should have never happened. And you're going to be very disappointed when you find out the real number of people that were killed. It's far greater, many times greater, I believe, but far greater than the numbers that you're putting out. It's a very, very deadly, horrible war. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some Catholics were not so happy about the image of you looking like the Pope.
Oh, I see. You mean they can't take a joke? You don't mean the Catholics. You mean the fake news media. Not the Catholics loved it. I had nothing to do with it. Somebody made up a picture of me dressed like the Pope, and they put it out on the Internet. That's not me that did it. I have no idea where it came from. Maybe it was AI, but I know nothing about it. I just saw it last evening. Actually, my wife thought it was cute. She said, "Isn't that nice?"
My question about
Actually, I would not be able to be married, though. That would be a lot. I'd have to the best of my knowledge, popes aren't big on getting married, are they? Not that we know of. No. I think it's the fake news media that, they're fakers.
My question, though, sir, was about the fact that it was put out on the White House account. Even though it was AI generated, it was a joke, it was a meme. Does it at all diminish the substance of the official White House account to have it go out on that particular channel?
Give me a break. It was just somebody did it in fun. It's fine. Have to have a little fun, don't you? Yeah, please, go ahead.
Tell me about the program that's just been introduced to give undocumented immigrants living in the United States
About me?
$1,000 to self-deport. Can you just tell us a little bit?
Oh, the new program,
The new program.
We have millions of people that have come into this country illegally through an administration that didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have a clue. And now we find out officially they didn't because the president was incompetent, but I could have told you that before. And they've allowed millions and millions of people to pour in. Murderers, drug dealers, the biggest drug dealers in the world, actually, terrorists come in, emptied prisons from many countries, not just South America, all over the world. They emptied their prisons into our beautiful USA. And to get that many people, 21 million people we think the real number is, but let's say 3 million of them are serious criminals. 11,888 murderers, many of whom murdered more than one person. It's hard to believe we have to even talk about this when we're talking about something so beautiful, but it's something we have to talk about having to do with the country because it's very important. So they came in by the millions illegally into our country. They just flowed in through an open border policy that was insane. And what we've done is we've offered, you know the numbers, but because we're taking them out by the thousands, we're being obstructed. It's very unfair what's happening because the court system is being It's very unfair. We have to get them out fast. These are bad people. These are people that are killing, and they've already killed many people in this country. Illegal immigrants that came in illegally through an open border policy, which is insane. We talk about common sense. That's not common sense. And they came in from the Congo, all over Africa, all over Asia, all over South America, parts of Europe. They flowed in and just walked right into our country. We had no idea who they were. 21 million at least. That's probably a low number. You know, you hear lower numbers than that. It's not. That's a low number. But many are really serious criminals and terrorists and people from jails. They emptied out jails. You know, Venezuela, their crime is down 72% because they took all the criminals off the streets and the gangs and they dumped them into our country. So we're getting them out. It's a very difficult thing with the courts because the courts have all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they said, maybe you have to have trials. We're going to have 5 million trials. Doesn't work. You wouldn't have a country left. But hopefully the Supreme Court will save it. But what they've done is a very, very serious thing. You know, past presidents took out hundreds of thousands of people when needed. You look at Eisenhower, you look at many of them, and they took people out and they didn't go through any of this. But what we thought we'd do is a self-deport, where we're going to pay each one a certain amount of money, and we're going to get them a beautiful flight back to where they came from, and they have a period of time. And if they make it, we're going to work with them so that maybe someday, with a little work, they can come back in if they're good people, if they're the kind of people that we want in our company, industrious people that could love our country. And if they're not, they won't. But it will give them a path to becoming, to coming back into the country. If they miss that limit, they're going to be taken out of our country, and they will never get a path to come back in, and it'll be a much tougher process. And it's called self-deportation. And by doing that, you're talking about so many millions of people. By doing that, we've taken out thousands of terrorists, drug lords. What we've done is amazing, and I'm sure Tom Homan and Kristi Noem have done an incredible job. They really have done an incredible job, but it's a hard job. So we're going to have a self-deportation where they deport themselves out of our country, and we'll work with them, and we're going to try, and if we think they're good, if they have, the people we want in our country, they're going to come back into our country. We'll give them a little easier route. But if they don't work, and if we take them out after the date, then they're never coming back. And that's the least of the problems that they're going to have. Yeah, please.
What's your expectation for your meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister tomorrow?
I don't know. He's coming to see me. I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal. Everybody does. They all want to make a deal because we have something that they all want. We have something that they all want. China wants to make a deal very badly. You see what's happening to China? China's being decimated, and I don't want that to happen. But they have to make a fair deal. We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year. We were losing think of it, on our trade policies with Biden. We're losing $5 billion a day. I think Josh, as a great businessman, would not let that happen too long, right? How many groups can lose $5 billion a day? If you lose $5 billion one day, that's the end of that company, right? You're fired. He says, you're fired. Get out of here. So we essentially did that, and we have it down to a very low number. We're doing really well, really well. Yeah.
How did you decide to reopen Alcatraz? Can you walk us through that decision?
Did I say what?
To reopen Alcatraz. How will you use it? How did you come up with the idea?
Well, I guess I was supposed to be a movie maker. We started with the movie making, and we'll end. I mean, it represents something very strong, very powerful in terms of law and order. Our country needs law and order. Alcatraz is, I would say, the ultimate, right? Alcatraz, Sing Sing and Alcatraz, the movies. But it's right now a museum, believe it or not. A lot of people go there. It housed the most violent criminals in the world, and nobody ever escaped. One person almost got there, but they, as you know the story, they found his clothing rather badly ripped up, and it was a lot of shark bites, a lot of problems. Nobody's ever escaped from Alcatraz, and just represented something strong having to do with law and order. We need law and order in this country, And so we're going to look at it. Some of the people up here are going to be working very hard on that. And we had a little conversation. I think it's going to be very interesting. We'll see if we can bring it back in large form, add a lot. But I think it represents something. Right now it's a big hulk that's sitting there rusting and rotting. You look at it, it's sort of, you saw that picture that was put out, it's sort of amazing. But it sort of represents something that's both horrible and beautiful and strong and miserable, weak. It's got a lot of qualities that are interesting, and I think they make a point. Okay, are you guys okay? I want to just say that it's such an honor to be up here with my friends, because this is a group of people that have done an amazing job, and all we can do, Muriel and I, is give them the greatest sight there is, I think, that I've ever seen for something like this. And I did very well in the real estate business. I think this is the greatest site there is anywhere in the world for exactly what you guys are doing. And we'll work with you. We've got a lot of work to do to get it going, but we'll work with you and we'll try and make the dream come true. And I want to thank you all very much for being here. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to help the people of Gaza get some food. People are starving, and we're going to help them get some food. A lot of people are making it very, very bad. If you look, Hamas is making it impossible because they're taking everything that's brought in. But we're going to help the people of Gaza because they're being treated very badly by Hamas. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
So an exciting announcement from President Trump. Also, Roger Goodell, the NFL Commissioner, Muriel Bowser, the D.C. Mayor, as well as the owners of the Washington Commanders 2027 draft will be in Washington, D.C. So an exciting time for that. Does draw many people, as Mr. Goodell mentioned, to Green Bay this year, 600,000. Detroit last year at 800,000. It will definitely be well over 1 million, if not 2 million. Attending in Washington, D.C. So that will be very exciting, including the new Commanders Stadium at the location of what was the RFK Stadium in honor of the late, great United States Senator, former presidential candidate, and Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy Sr., so Secretary Kennedy's dad, being honored in such a special way. That's pretty much everything for our stream today, unless there's breaking news. Now, President Trump also, just some things coming up, May 8th, wanting to celebrate all of the victory days regarding over Europe, regarding over the Nazis and the Empire of Japan dating back to World War II. So First Lady Melania Trump will be having an event on May 8th. We'll keep you posted on that. Also, President Trump will be at the commencement, his second one of West Point, the Black Knights of our Army Academy, all the way up at West Point, New York. That will be May 24th, so stay tuned for that. And we're coming into a season of really amazing things happening, so stick with us here at your go-to live desk. That is Right Side Broadcasting Network. And thank you to our sponsors, Colonial Metals Group, Paul Stone, the great CEO. We'd like you to shield your savings now because you have China dumping its U.S. stock, buying up primetime farmland here in the homeland. They had those spy balloons during the last administration, but Republican leaders like President Trump, Governor DeSantis, also the Republican Congress pushing back against this. But regardless, scan that QR code now. Shield your savings today. freegoldguy.com/RSBN. That's freegoldguy.com/RSBN. Colonial Metals Group, thank you for sponsoring us, as well as the wonderful angelpaste.com. Experience the miracle cream today from Spring, Texas, off of the Gulf of America, whether it is the original miracle cream filled with vitamin Bs or the orange option filled with vitamin Cs. Non-GMO, no chemicals in them, just good for your skin, good for mind, body, and soul. A nice facial spray, a nice natural mosquito repellent as well. Christian-owned, they are hiring veterans as well. They prioritize that out of the Lone Star State in Texas, Spring, Texas, off the Gulf of America, angelpaste.com. Thank you for being there for us. Now imagine needing a medication and then not having the ability to get one, not because they're out of stock, but because Big Pharma does not want you to have one. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Get ivermectin and over 200 essential medications to your doorstep. When others make it complicated, All Family Pharmacy makes it simple for you. So they have these antibiotics, these essential medications, everything to keep your medicine cabinet stocked, because being prepared is not an option anymore. It's about your everyday life, about your everyday health. Just imagine a spouse gets high blood pressure, does not have the medication in the middle of the night, or your child spikes a fever or the flu and needs to rush somewhere or get life-saving medication, and the pharmacies are closed. All Family Pharmacy takes care of that. You order online, their doctors handle the prescription, and your meds get shipped right away to you because their doctors are on call even overnight. So no insurance, no hassle, just peace of mind. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, code RSBN10, 10% off today. Get 10% off that order, RSBN10. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us here on the right side of history. And there's a live shot of beautiful Auburn, Alabama, as many are preparing for their commencement. Some have finished school already. Congratulations to the graduates of this fine institution. And again, doesn't it look like a Norman Rockwell painting? Maybe even some Rembrandt themes and lighting in that. It's just gorgeous on this beautiful day in the loveliest village on the plains. Get all of your America First updates and exclusive offers at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. And if you wish to opine, feedback at rsbn.tv. If you can donate, rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. We appreciate all of your support as we are citizen journalists, hosts, reporters, commentators, and news anchors focused on the right side of history and bringing you this unbridled access to your 47th Commander-in-Chief, your 50th Vice President, and the 119th Congress. We are so fortunate to be Americans, and we are so fortunate to fight for the values that have made this constitutional republic, this great experiment, the home of the brave and the land of the free. We're grateful for our veterans. We're grateful for you, the viewers, here on the right side of history. Now, if there's any breaking news, we'll be right here with you at Rightside Broadcasting Network. But if not, we will be taping some activities happening tonight with the president and playing those back online. But please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we love you here at the network. Thank you for tuning in. For all my colleagues at Rightside Broadcasting Network, I'm Robert McNeely. Have a great afternoon. Be safe out there. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Hug the ones you love. Call up your friends and family. And remain to be patriotic and optimistic in this golden era. We'll see you tomorrow.
Welcome to Rightside Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Hey y'all, it's Silk.
from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.